Matt.
And I'm Guy. And this is your home for everything Alberta independence, Monday through Saturday, streaming live at 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Let's get into it.
First of all, hello, and thank you so much for...
I'll let you do the introduction real quick.
Sure.
I forgot to give my dog a treat before the show, so she behaves.
Thank you so much for joining us today, our dog. Please do subscribe because it really does help us out. We have been growing and we're trying to grow more so we can reach more people. All about Alberta independence, freedom, and the truth. Again, we read all your comments, so please join the conversation. Let us know what you're thinking. It makes the whole live show a thing. Otherwise, we would just pre-record. So we love hearing about you all. And what else do I usually say? Oh, yes, we prioritize Super Chat, so we'll pause the whole show. But we do read all the comments anyways after each section. We segment the show via segments and chapters. I'm trying to not to be distracted by the dog. What else? Also, thank you so much again to all the canvassers. I know we did a show this Saturday, and now we will do routinely a show on Saturdays, maybe a little bit shorter than usual. But we're also working on getting interviews with some people within the movement, and those will be coming up soon as well. So we're really excited about that. So it's a great time to subscribe so you can join us all in everything we're doing.
And I'm back. Sorry, my dog started barking at me. I realized I forgot to give her some pills. She has a bad back, so we have to give her pills once a day.
Yeah, she has issues. If anybody has a friend here, I'm sure you know all about their health issues. But I will also say hello to David Walter Carlson. Hello, and says good afternoon from Spruce Grove. Good afternoon from Mexico City. Well, close to Mexico City.
Yeah, we used to live in Vancouver, Canada. We already voted for our independence. Luckily, you're originally from Mexico.
Yes.
So we were able to escape the country under the Trudeau era rule.
And before Alberta independence was even out there. So if that would have been an option, our lives would probably look pretty different.
Well, and that's why I'm always appealing to people from other provinces that are fleeing to the United States en masse to choose Alberta and Alberta independence right now and use the United States as a backup plan and a safety net. Yeah, you could really make the difference.
And also, hello to Cole. Thank you for being here, Cole. And Primorous007 says, Buenas tardes, Nat y Guy. Good evening, Nat and the Guy. Looking forward to tonight's show. Thank you. Looking forward to your comments as well.
And yeah, we are broadcasting live 6 days a week now. Once in a while, we'll move it around because today was the first day we started reaching out to start interviewing somebody. We have 2 interviews scheduled.
Yes.
We're going to hopefully interview Marty tomorrow. Yes. We're not going to do any of it live. We're going to pre-record it just because we're not sure if our internet connection is good enough and we don't want to fail live on stream.
And hello to Olivia Robinson, who says hello from Edmonton. So,
okay.
Hello. Very multiple places. That's
yeah,
nice.
A lot of Albertans, which is always good.
Yes. And then you had a thing before the first segment, I guess?
Oh, yeah. I wanted to start off with something a little different. Usually we go right into Stay Free Alberta and what's going on with the petition, what's going on the ground. Today, I seen somebody from BC actually put out a message that had real encouragement for people from Alberta. And I think this is why we need to appeal to national conservatives in Canada as well. Let's see his take on it, though.
Sure. So it says, I'm envious of Alberta, says BCer from the New Canada Conversation.
And I have profiled this gentleman before. I believe he's from Victoria. Great channel. He's growing really fast. So hopefully we can get on for an interview as well. But this was a nice short video he made, and I really liked the sentiment here.
Hello, everyone. Mark Heck coming to you from Vancouver Island. I've been thinking a lot lately about Alberta leaving. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit envious. You see, I grew up in one of those neighborhoods where all the neighborhood kids knew one another. But even more importantly, it was our family house that was often at the center of activity. It was the natural stopping point halfway between the school and the rest of the neighborhood up the hill. So neighborhood kids came and went all the time at our place, and we left the door unlocked. And I ended up getting a good sense of human nature, let's just say. So, as I say, everyone knew one another, at least the guys did. The girls were doing something else, and now that I think about it, I don't really know what it was they were doing. Anyway, something.
And pause it for a quick second. Yeah, and he's going to go in just a minute into what Alberta means for the rest of Canada and how a lot of other provinces in Canada may follow in Alberta's footsteps. And I think a lot of Western Canada just might. I wish BC could, but I mean, Vancouver and Victoria are just these huge voting blocks that put massive barrier in BC's way, whether it's natural resource production or independence.
Always together. We were playing hockey in the street, building forts out of sticks and mud in summer and snow in the winter. We were lighting things on fire and stealing road signs, playing war in the abandoned orchard across the street. coming home for dinner, and then we'd run off late into the night again. So we were pretty much free. Like, those were really good times. And sure, sometimes we fought, but we always made up and then carried on. But eventually the years passed and we all got older, and then there came a time where we had to go our own separate ways. You know, you can't really stop time and responsibilities. You can't stop life changing. And when I look now, I see that Alberta is like the first guy that got to leave the neighborhood, to go off on his own. And, you know, some of us really liked the neighborhood and we didn't want it to change. I didn't want it to change. I really liked it the way it was. But there was that first guy who was a lot like Alberta. He was itching to go. He found the neighborhood too small, too stifling, didn't like the adults telling him what to do, especially from Mr. Burns down the street, who acted like he owned the place even though he didn't. But today, the time has come. Alberta is leaving, and many of us are quietly envious. And I mean, in one sense, we don't want to see him go, but in another sense, we're excited for him, proud of him even. He gets to go first. So it's like we've all gathered around at his place at this moment. We're in his driveway out front. His truck is a little beat up, but it's a good truck. We've all worked on it together, changed the transmission, the clutch a few times, the brakes countless times, and he's in the driver's seat now. And suddenly his younger brother Saskatchewan jumps into the passenger seat, riding shotgun. And the Dakota boys were always close family, so it makes sense they would both go off together. And there's some in the crowd who start pleading, take me, take me. The rest of us are silent. We know that realistically, we have to go on our own separate way as well. We can't ride the coattails of the Dakota boys. And truth be told, the Dakota boys are actually trying to get away from half of us anyway. So it's time for the rest of us to grow up and do our own thing as well. And while we're sad to see Alberta go, we're also proud and, as I say, a little bit envious. So he hasn't quite left yet. He's still in the driveway, and he's about to turn on the ignition, grab the shifter, and slide it into gear. Okay, many blessings to you all on this Easter Monday. Bye for now.
And that was just a fantastic video I seen. I wanted to share it with everybody. And the sentiment of a lot of national conservative Canadians are on the side of Alberta independence. And as Mark Carney ramps up the rhetoric here in the summertime, I think he's going to try to pin those people against Albertans. And that's not the way it has to be. It's our place as content creators and people of Alberta that want independence to reach out to people in the other provinces, as well as people in the United States and internationally that have already left Canada. These are going to be some of your most fervent supporters, as well as when censorship comes in. We know Mark Carney has 3 bills on the shelf.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Or debanking or whatever it is he's going to come with.
Sorry, I made a mistake and started playing the Rumble outro.
Oh, that's okay.
We're still here. I'm sorry. I was trying to go to you and I pressed the Rumble outro. We're still here. We have eventually do go over to Are You and BLE, but towards the end of the show,
It's
don't
just
worry.
playing now. Okay.
It was like 3 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. What I was going to do was go to the we're going to go start to talk about the petition, which is Alberta Stay Free.
Yeah, let's go into Stay Free Alberta.
Free home Alberta, where the roots run deep and the money trees grow.
Too many buttons I have to control.
Well, I'm just reprogramming all the buttons and stuff as well.
Yeah.
She does a lot of things during the show. I don't do anything but talk. So sometimes I talk a little bit more. She's controlling the buttons, reading the chat, making sure everything's on point with the sound. So much appreciation to you. The show wouldn't work without you.
Yeah,
Once
we've
upon a
tried.
time, I tried to do a show by myself, doing what you do. And I said, yeah, that's not happening.
But this is the first time I think I've pressed the wrong button. There's been times the button doesn't work, but this is the first time I did the complete wrong thing I was trying to do.
Well, you should see some of the old episodes where she has to go use the restroom. I'm just lost like a deer in the headlights.
Or control our dog. But yes, let's start with John Bolton saying, quote, meet Michael, who was canvassing near Fish Creek Park. Check out his signs. These people are the best.
Yeah, and this section is everything that goes on with the petition, the signatures, the game plan, what the federal government might be trying to throw in front of us, and how we are dealing with it.
So I'm out here on Sun Valley Boulevard, right at the top of the hill at Sukhumi Lake by Fish Creek Park in the southeast. Here with Michael, who's out here canvassing today. Michael, great to see you. Big smile on your face when I came up today.
Yeah, it's very nice to be out here. It's a sunny day. Lots of people are coming by. It's really good.
And you've got a lot of people. You said you got 19 people. Was it just yesterday?
Yesterday, yeah. When the sun came out, they all came out.
Yeah.
And it was really cold the day before and really windy. I got 1. Before that, it was 2. Other than that, it was 15. It just goes up and down depending on how the weather is.
Good stuff. Well, thanks for being out here. I want to just move aside so we can see the sign that's in behind that you put up. It's awesome. Fantastic. We've got another one across the street. So what we'll do is we'll do a quick edit here and we'll go across.
And we'll continue in just a second. But as the weather heats up, people are really going to start coming out and people are going to get home from a lot of these camp jobs on the 15th. So if the First Nations aren't able to stop the petition, it's going to mean a massive amounts of signatures all at once. We were really fighting the weather at the worst time of the year because we wanted to make the date of October 19th for the actual vote. The fact that we got as many signatures as we did is absolutely amazing. If we can go for another month, I think we're going to have no problem reaching 500,000.
Across the street so people can see your other side. Okay, so we're back. We're on the other side of the street now, and we'll just show you the great reveal here. Just move over to the side there, Mike. There you go. 177,000 signed. Join us. Free Alberta.
Okay, and thanks to John Bolton. I mean, he's really getting out there on the ground and shining a light on everybody that's been putting this petition forward, as well as giving daily news and updates.
Yes, because without the canvassers, and as we said on Saturday when we did a whole show to appreciate the canvassers, without them, I mean, this wouldn't even be happening. So thank you so much to everybody and to everybody that signed. But as I continuously say as well, not until we have, I guess, a bunch of more Albertans that are voting age that have signed is their job, I'd say, complete. Well, because there's been a lot of stopgaps that they've tried to put in. There's one more coming tomorrow, maybe. But I think the sentiment is still keep going, and that's the important one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these are unpaid petitioners that are volunteering their nights, their weekends. If they work all day, a full-time job, some of them are going out afterwards in the worst possible conditions at the worst time of year. So it's fantastic to see the grassroots movement that has really built up, and we're going to be able to keep hopefully the majority of those 7,000 people that have been pushing this petition into the next phase of this, which is education for the public, and let them know Alberta independence is the safe bet. You follow Canada, you're going to follow them right off a cliff.
And also with the canvassers and anybody that wants to keep moving Alberta independence forward, for example, our channel will always be open to canvassers to interview them, to whatever they want to say, if they want to come on and let us know what their experience has been, will be, what their hopes are. I think that will also be very important because, again, you have all of these motivated people that after the petition closes or after the signatures, well, as much as we can get are done, they're going to be very useful still to Alberta independence, to education, and to the rest of the citizenry as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And just talking about their experience during that petition phase, because they got a lot of pushback. There's a lot of videos, a lot of nationalists throwing coffee on them. I mean, we got one clip of that today, and that was absolutely ridiculous. But when the nationalists come in the summertime and start trying to frame us as whatever they want to frame us as, we're the ones with the videos. We're the ones that were nice and polite, getting these petitions, getting these signatures, and we have video proof of it.
Mm-hmm. And Marty up North is another great person that has been updating us all about how it's going. One of the most well-known canvassers, I would say, especially now that he has a show on Western Standard.
Well, I wouldn't say he's just one of the most well-known canvassers. I would say he was very representative of kind of a blue-collar individual within Alberta. And his journey into canvassing is really very much how a lot of people's journey into canvassing was, but he at the same time got really big on the content creation scene, so he was able to merge both of those spaces, which is really good to see.
So Marty up North says, quote, I was talking to someone about this on the petition trail yesterday. He agreed with me that government is too big and needs to be reduced. But what shocked me is that he works for the city and honestly didn't make the connection with the fact that he works for the government. In his mind, only people in Ottawa work for the government. And this is because he had posted before, Canada's public service is too big, particularly the federal component, when measured against recent trends in employment growth, production outcomes, and the broader economic context of our sluggish per capita growth and persistent deficits. It's too big.
Yeah. When even the government workers realize that the government's too big, it's definitely too big there. The big issue with this for national Canada is if they make the government smaller and they get rid of a lot of workers, which they need to do, and really focus on the private sector. That private sector is just extremely weak and it is shrinking rather than growing. If Alberta gets its independence and decides to shrink the size of its government, there's going to be opportunities in the private sector for a lot of those individuals to get jobs and very well-paying jobs.
But I also do agree with both Keith Wilson and Jeff Rath when they say maybe Canada is just too big. And I wouldn't only look at Canada as maybe having that same issue, but other countries as well might be just too big at this moment, and with what they've done to their citizens as well, to continue to make sense.
Well, absolutely. And I was watching a couple new content creators that I just discovered, and they were talking about high-speed rail and water management within Alberta. And if they're able to build out that high-speed rail and a lot of other things, it's going to really shrink the size of Alberta. So it's going to be really easily managed. A lot of good ideas coming out from a lot of different people these days.
Someone else we have also been highlighting that has been out there on the streets interviewing people is John Alberta Patriot, and we really like him. He says, quote, "One of the most significant conversations I had in Red Deer was not with a longtime political activist, a public figure, or someone who lives and breathes this stuff every day. It was with ordinary Albertans that told me they had never really been involved in politics."
Yeah, and John is absolutely fantastic. He just picked up the camera and went out and started making content, talking to people on the street with his wife. Most of the time his wife's with him, so he has somebody to hold the camera. Sometimes she's not, and he's doing it on his own. Great conversations, and it's really good to see how a grassroots movement grows, and this is how it happens.
So let's watch. Hold on.
Can I talk to you guys a little bit? Awesome. Well, thanks for coming out. Hey, how's it going, man? So many people, shoulder to shoulder, all the way down over there. Wow. Yeah, we watch it all the time. Oh, I hope that's a good thing. I don't know. I'm kind of a humble guy, and I never really thought this would turn into this. Well, I sure enjoy it. Do you? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing. Guys like you. Yeah. Yeah, right on. Well, and now hundreds of people are going to see this on YouTube, or thousands maybe, and hopefully we can inspire them to do this again. Well, sure. You never know, eh? I've never been involved.
And pause it really quick. We're going to continue on with this because I always love John's clips, but this is really reminiscent of when the truckers were going to Ottawa and people were on the side of the road with Canadian flags. Problem with the Canadian flag is Mark Carney seems to have taken the symbolism of the Canadian flag over, turned it into the socialist, communist, nationalist ideal. It's a shame. The Albertan flag is now the flag that represents freedom, hope, and the future.
You've never been involved with this before?
No, not politics.
Like, have you ever, like, canvassed for a politician or door knocked or did anything?
I've never done that, and I feel really good about this. This is the right thing to do. Yeah. For our grandkids and everybody.
Well, this is something I've been thinking about is, like, a lot of people who are disaffected by politics. Like, they don't vote, or they maybe do, but they don't really engage. And I feel a lot of them are in this movement now. They finally have hope.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's time that, like, if this slips through our fingers, I think we're done.
Yeah.
You know, I really do.
Yeah.
But it makes you feel good to at least try and do something good for everybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, that's a good statement, right? If it slips through our fingers, this is our chance. This is it.
This is it. Well, listen, I can't believe the amount of people that are honking and everything.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, you can leave it there. And I feel like that could just be anybody in Alberta, and that's really what gives other people confidence. These are just ordinary folks that are coming out because they want a better future. They see the direction of Canada. I feel like that could be me and you when we're old.
Especially with me trying to fix everything around you as we just talk and are oblivious of the rest of what's happening.
And I don't know if John knows it, but he is doing a big service to Alberta independence when he goes on the ground and just gets those common people's interviews, or even when he gets pushback from other people and he just puts it out there.
Yeah. And showing, especially maybe for those of us, all of Alberta, but for those of us that aren't there, the ability to see what the sentiment is also on the ground. But specifically what he said about people not being involved politically or disengaging and not caring, and then taking up this movement because it gives them hope. I think that is the crux of the issue as well, because a lot of people have lost interest in federal politics and what's going on in Canada because it's either so depressing, or they're lying to you, or you suspect at least that they're lying to you through the paid off mainstream media. But the fact that this movement got so many salt of the earth, normal people interested again for their own freedom, I think that is what is missing just in general in the conversation in Canada. It is broken to the point where it feels like you can't fix it. But with this, you can fix it. And this is the one chance you have to fix it.
And not just to fix it, you can fix almost everything overnight. Now, we're not going to get everything right. I'm more than willing to admit that. But man, who would have thought things could change this drastically in Canada? This is real hope, a real light, a real North Star. I will also say this is the section that we cover what's going on with the petition and on the ground. But later on, we got the big story of potentially 10 floor crossers. It may sound absolutely ridiculous. He already has 3 by-elections coming up. I'm talking about Mark Carney, but a lot of the NDP are extremely disenfranchised with their new leadership, and they're, I think, ready to cross over to the Liberals. It's a rigged system, and you can see that now more than ever. I think this is going to push a lot of people towards Alberta independence, not only within Alberta, but within national Canada. Hopefully, a lot of national content creators that have been shying away from Alberta independence will start talking about this issue after these 3 by-elections on the 13th.
Well, after the whole Conservative potential win, or maybe them getting in, becomes almost completely obliterated, at least for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
But you're talking about people across Canada looking at Alberta and saying, well, maybe that might be just the solution for me as well. And Jeff Rath has also thought about this from Rights of Alberta, quote, more people are making the move to Alberta because they can see where this could be headed. The prospect of independence is pulling in entrepreneurs and builders who want to be, want to be here before the vote, not after.
Well, and this is something I've been bringing up every show for well over a month now, is we need to appeal to other Canadians that are fleeing Canada en masse for the United States. 259,000 last year. 41,000 in British Columbia alone. There's going to be even more this year. These people could really find hope in Alberta, changing Alberta. These are the kind of people that will vote for independence, will sell their businesses off in the rest of Canada, and they're looking to reopen in the States, but maybe Alberta can be their home, and it could be a big difference.
I think that Alberta independence is actually helping the economy in Alberta, right? I know of businesses in Ontario that have sold. One gentleman had a chain of small grocery stores in rural Ontario, sold all of his stores, brought all of his money to Alberta, and he's starting new businesses in southern Alberta because he wants to be here for independence and he wants to get out of what's become communist Ontario, right? And, we see that more and more. Businesses selling out in BC, people moving in from BC to Alberta, people moving from Ontario, Manitoba, the Maritimes to open businesses in Alberta because lower taxes, the future of a zero income tax environment, zero corporate tax environment in Alberta, or federal corporate tax environment in Alberta going forward. I mean, these are all very positive things, for people going forward. I think that Alberta independence is actually helping the economy in Alberta, right?
Yeah, and Alberta has the strongest economy within Canada. As independence, it will be 10 times stronger than it is because it has been severely limited for well over a decade now. That being said, the U.S. is a great safety net for a lot of these people. Go to Alberta first, but I also want to kind of put this out there, and I know a lot of people don't talk about it, but if Alberta does vote for independence, it's not like it's out there blowing in the wind. Let's just say everything failed, and I think Alberta, of all the independence movements around the globe, it's only that and Saskatchewan that are really economically viable. But let's just say nobody wanted their natural resources for some crazy unknown reason and it failed. You always have Canada that will always take you back, and you have the United States as well, and you could play one off the other or pick or choose what you want if independence didn't work. Now, when you look into the numbers, it's obvious independence is not only going to work, it's going to be one of the most prosperous democratic countries in the world. And it
actually prosperous and actually democratic.
Well, and that's just not me saying that. You can look into the APP, that's the Alberta Prosperity Project. You can look into the large scale study they kind of put out there, and they were very conservative in their findings. I went through most of that today, and it was very, very interesting. I was giving it to a few other people here in Mexico that are politically minded to see what they think about it. So they'll get back to me and I'll let you guys know.
We've also been talking about businesses that have or haven't supported canvassers or doing work outside. We do know, for example, the Big Orange home conglomerate just set up a bunch of trucks outside because one of our subscribers told us so people couldn't stay there and canvass. We also know, for example, Costco doesn't allow people to be even across the street almost. But the rising of the Alberta Army of Independence says, quote, hello, Albertans living in Edmonton. Special request, Anthony is in the flooring business and he allows canvassers to set up inside his store as he supports Alberta independence. He put his neck out for the movement. Now let's take care of him. Let's protect those who are in support of us.
Yeah, and we have been profiling businesses that are letting canvassers sit up or out front of their business and support Alberta independence. There was a cafe we profiled on Saturday that John Alberta Patriot went out to. So this is a risk for a lot of these businesses. A lot of national voters will hold it against them. So if they're willing to stand up for Alberta independence, whether the vote goes good or bad, we need to stand by a lot of these people that supported us.
Alrighty, folks, here got a real special thing here. Wanted to pay attention. This company here. Woo! This company here supports Alberta independence and allows a canvasser to be in there taking signature, man. He's putting his neck on the line here. His name is Anthony. Man, I'm so proud of this guy, man, to, not let fear of losing business. Well, there's support going by there. Anyways, he just allows us.
And thank you again to every single business that has not shown fear in the face of the national government and has supported Alberta independence. I know it's not an easy decision. That being said, we do have one more article in the Stay Free Alberta section. Then we're going to read comments. So put your comments in now before we go to Alberta Politics. I will say this, Alberta Politics is huge today because of what's happening on the beginning of this month, whether it's the 8th, the 12th, or the 14th. There's multiple big days this month.
And that was King's Flooring Center. I just wanted to say the name once again. But at the same time, allowing canvassers to be inside, especially when it's cold, when people don't want to go out, and because we can highlight where those locations are. Again, go to stayfreealberta.com and you can find all the locations where canvassers are. If you haven't signed yet, go sign as soon as possible. But it's great. And I also think businesses, especially smaller independent businesses, knows what benefits them. Like they understand the change that they will be able to see, the impact that they will be able to see within an independent Alberta.
Well, absolutely. And there's already a lot of talk within the Alberta independence movement, how to build a strong economy, not just based upon corporations, but how do we grow strong businesses from the ground up and make sure they get contracts to make sure they're visible in the government's eyes and not only the citizens.
However, not everything has been peaches and cream or peaches and roses, or however you say it. Because, yes, there are some lunatics, especially the nationalists, who decide to act like children. And that's literally why so many Albertans want to leave the insane asylum that is Canada. Alberta Proud Dad says, this happened today in Calgary. These anti-independence folks are cowards, saying you don't have to agree with everyone's opinions or views, but throwing your hot coffee out of your window while driving past someone talking to Alberta independence canvassers doesn't show tolerance or respect. It's assault.
Yeah, this is absolutely ridiculous when something like this happens. But of course, if it was going to happen, it would happen in a city like Calgary. It's crazy how Calgary is starting to support the NDP or was supporting the NDP. We'll see what happens going forward. That being said, we can't have I think a lot of transplants from other provinces and immigrants come in and make what happened to British Columbia happened to Alberta, meaning Vancouver and Victoria got so big in their voter base that it turned the entire province liberal. A lot of that province, especially the interior and the north, are very similar minded to Albertans.
Yeah. And again, acting like children, actually showing their true colors. And now it has all been caught on, I hope, video, but maybe just photo. But there's evidence now as to how others that didn't want Alberta to separate were treating those that were trying to look for freedom in a very respectful manner as well. Again, all the incidents we continue to see pop up are coming from the people that are against Alberta independence. And that just shows the childish nature of these people and of the insane asylum that Canada has become. That is why also I emphasize etiquette and manners and being able to be respectful to each other, unless, of course, you're fully provoked. But they're throwing hot coffee out of a window. We've seen in other protests that you never know what liquid is being thrown on you. It could have been something way more dangerous. So again, it is assault, but it could also be very dangerous to start doing those kinds of things and not to take it lightly.
Well, it's very telling when they're resulting to throwing coffee at you or yelling in your face and tossing down your flags or pushing you or whatever else they're going to do. The one thing they don't want to do is debate. I will say one of the few people that did step up and debate so far was Jason Kenney, but I mean, he's just going to rally more Albertans towards independence. Yeah. Very few people are stepping up for debates, and I wish more people would step up for debates, but the thing is, the Nationalists don't have a lot of good talking points here.
Nope. Now I'll read your comments and then we go into the next segment.
Which is Alberta Politics.
Which is Alberta Politics, because your comments make the show. Edward, hello, says, hola. David Walter says, yes, we have lost our sense of community. I remember block parties, road hockey, and potluck dinners. Those were the days. Let's bring it back, Alberta independence.
Yeah, and a lot of conservative Canadians want to bring it back as well. And they realize it's not going to be possible in their own provinces. There is a great migration going on right now, and people are headed to Alberta to vote for Alberta independence.
Harmony, hello, says, hello, Nat and the guy. Hello. Charlie Default says, hi, folks from Sherwood Park, Alberta. I like how everybody's from different places. Armand Hognorth, hello from my Spanish show, says, Hi Nat, hi Guy, coming to the English live for the very first time. I hope I said that correctly. Yes, you did. And thank you for being here. Gracias por estar por aquí. Again, I do have a whole other channel that's all in Spanish and about Latin American and Mexican politics because we divided them so we can concentrate on different topics. But unfortunately, today I won't have a live show in the Spanish channel, which is usually after this one, because we are interviewing someone for tomorrow. So that is why Armand no va a haber show mañana. El día de hoy va a ser mañana.
Yeah, and I will say again, we have a list of about 75 people we're going to start reaching out to. The other big part of this channel we want to start get going is interviews. We've never really done a lot of them, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah. But if anybody does want to interview, whether you're a petitioner or just live in Alberta, please kind of hit us up. Our contact information?
Yeah, so you can DM us on X or Instagram or anywhere, or you can email us at natandtheguy@gmail.com.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's also in our description and on our YouTube profile and everywhere else. Edward says, hola, hello. Mihai Sim says, hi from Kalispell, MT, Montana?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Mountain? Not sure, but hello. Thank you for being here. Our man says, greetings from León, Mexico. Hello. And again,
a lot of your Mexican people are coming over.
Well, he's the same one.
Oh, same one. Okay.
Yes, just saying where he's from. Very conservative state here in Mexico, by the way. They're pretty strong as well.
We're doing all we can to bring awareness to Alberta independence here in Mexico, too. It's going to be a big trading partner if you do get independence, as well as we're reaching out to a lot of U.S. content creators and a lot of U.S. thinkers to hopefully interview them and just spread awareness of Alberta independence, even if they don't know about it, just having a conversation with them. So as this thing ramps up, they're like, oh yeah, I remember about that. We should talk about that. We really want to put all eyes on the Canadian government so they don't try to overreach with the Emergencies Act, or if they do, it's going to limit the actions that they take.
And I've continuously tried to clarify as well that Alberta wants to be independent, not become the 51st state, because in even conservative but Spanish media, media in Spanish, they do continue to say that it's because they want to become the 51st state. So I've been doing everything I can to debunk that.
Yeah,
too.
And the biggest reason why Alberta should not become the 51st state is not because they don't like the United States, but because the United States itself, and a lot of conservatives know this in the States, is they're very bipolar every 4 or 8 years, and it's a different ideology. A lot of people may not know, but Alberta has voted conservative for the last 93 years. So going forward, when they have their own government, they should be able to build a very strong economy and not knock themselves down trying to undo what the former president did the year before.
Yes. Harmony, hello, says, I missed John on Saturday for Canvasser Appreciation Day. I made some Rice Krispie squares. Oh, nice. Yes,
yeah, we talked about that. You thought she was making brownies. I reminded you it was Rice Krispie squares.
And also says such people are some people that are moving are visionaries. Yeah, they're moving over to Alberta.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also says making supper tacos and watching that in the Guy podcast. Oh, I like when people let us know what they're cooking, if they're cooking, because we used to have another subscriber that used to always tell us.
Yeah. I don't know if I like it so much anymore. I've been having a few stomach problems and I can't eat as much right now. So.
And Harmony also says the meat store I go to allowed canvassers on her property. Good.
Oh, give the name of the meat store. We'll give them a shout out.
Exactly. Glenn Gunn says hello from Calgary. Hopefully still surviving over there. And hold on. And everybody's telling me yes, Montana.
Okay. We'll give a...
Sorry, just quickly. Jess from GP says, hello, Nat and the Guy, and all other girls and the guys. Hello. And also, Jess is a canvasser who has been great as well, letting us know how everything's going. So
yeah, so good on her. And
all the canvassers.
Thanks for being out there.
Still don't know if it's a him or her.
Yeah. Okay, one more comment, and then we'll go to Alberta Politics.
Glenn Gunn says, I watched, so good on John, I guess. And then people are just glad people are making tacos.
Okay, let's do it.
Making tacos. But yes, let's move on to Stay Free Alberta. No, we just did that. Alberta Politics. Here we go.
He doesn't discuss federal politics. He only concerns himself with Alberta's independence.
Yes. And...
Okay. Monday show, you're
it is
messing up a little bit.
Just because we didn't do anything yesterday. Starting with from Yukon Strong saying, quote, if you're anti-independence, you're anti-Canadian. It's really that simple. This country has become evil, corrupt, and is getting in bed with the worst nations in the world. And that's also news we're going to talk about. This stands against everything it means to be Canadian and Albertan.
Okay, I'm going to pause this throughout. This is the best piece of propaganda or arguments the nationalists have so far. It was well edited, well produced, and put out there. It was a good presentation. I don't agree with anything he's saying, but it's important we watch propaganda pieces like this and kind of pick it apart. So if a liberal picks this up and tries to have a debate or talk about it, we know the counter to these points.
This is from Zane Velji, I guess.
Ever wonder how a fringe movement wins? Well, there's a 3-step playbook, and Danielle Smith, well, she's handing it right to the separatists. Welcome to whatever the fuck this is. I'm Zane Velji. Okay, we have breaking news. I'm not going to yell because I don't want to increase your blood pressure and I don't have time to explain where I am and why. But the separatists in Alberta, they say they now have enough signatures to officially greenlight the separatist referendum in October. So congratulations to all of us. Let's talk about Alberta separatism, the truck nuts tumor of Canada. Step 1, you make separatism trendy. You pack urban ballrooms, have a premier act like a mealy-mouthed mothball.
I'm not going to demonize or marginalize a million of my fellow citizens.
And you just make it cool. So cool.
And we haven't made it cool yet. We haven't even tried to make it cool yet. As a matter of fact, we've done the opposite. We've been putting out the hard work on the side of the road in negative degree weather. If we wanted to make it cool, we would have picked a different time of year to gather petitions where we could have piggybacked off festivals and other things like the other petition did. That would have made it cool. No, we didn't make it cool. We put in the hard work and made it possible for freedom to happen and independence and to give hope to the rest of the conservatives in the nation of Canada.
Step 2, you normalize the toxicity and you tie it to everything. And this is where Alberta separatism looks like an IP play propped up by Smith. And we've seen this before. It's Brexit. Remember that thing where they convinced a bunch of Brits to step on their own dick and then lied about having the money to fix that dick? Inflation, immigration, Trudeau, equalization, not winning any super...
Yeah, and when we talk about Brexit went from a globalist EU master to a globalist EU master, liberal globalist governance to liberal globalist governance. Alberta is not doing that. Alberta does have the money. It's in the nuts and bolts. It's in the APP documents. You can see that. And these are underestimates.
Super Bowls. Throw it into the fucking blender. It's a grievance smoothie. Which brings us to our new segment, Seceding from Reality. Just look at Danielle Smith in this clip. She once pitches separatism not too long ago as her government's big or else to Ottawa.
The or else is Dennis Modry and the Alberta Prosperity Project.
That's
the or else, well, you don't frame Quebec independence as or else. You frame it as something to be respected. We should give them things. We need to respect independence. Why do they want to be independent? They should be part of Canada. Here's some more remittance payments. Here's whatever else you want. When it comes to Alberta, you treat them like the doormat and you have for the last 100 years. You don't even recognize this thing has been going on since 1905.
And also, as an aside, these kinds of people always have to swear because they really don't know how to talk without doing it.
It's the fucking premier of Alberta treating separation as a pressure group against the feds. These words might sound like horseshit, but they are an algorithm designed to mainline directly into the dad bod psyche of Alberta. Which brings us to part 3, and this is where it gets dangerous. Alberta and the separatists have found a dance partner, the United fucking States. We are watching an imperialist, fascist, algorithmic owning America looking for its next resource-rich.
This is probably the single most important part of the video. Donald Trump is going to be very important to the Alberta independence movement, especially if we vote for independence and Canada tries not to recognize it or doesn't go into negotiations. Alberta is then going to declare unilateral independence, but it needs Donald Trump to recognize that. The United States has already said they would. This is why the nationalists in the lead up to this election are going to try to pit Alberta against the United States and say Donald Trump is trying to divide us in order to conquer us. You're a traitor if you support Trump and the United States. They're not trying to become the 51st state. We can respect Trump because he put his people first, just like Alberta wants to put its people first. It's Mark Carney and the nationalists that have put their people last for well over a decade now. But you cannot allow the nationalists to pit Alberta against Trump because we actually need Trump at a very crucial stage of independence.
Annexation target. Look at the data. When asking the Alberta sovereignty crowd if joining the U.S. is a good thing, 51% said yes. Think about that. These folks aren't fighting for independence. They're fighting for a new owner.
However, in that little graph he showed, it said definitely leave, not definitely join the U.S. So he's even given weird data.
All while Danielle Smith won't discipline the alleged 19 MLAs in her caucus flirting with separatism because, you know, she's pro-Canada. Separatism won't make you more Albertan. It will make you a second-class American in a country that...
Pause it one more time. again, she should, even if Alberta independence doesn't become a thing for some unknown reason, she should be using Alberta independence against the federal government to build the best safety net she can. She's doing that. Pierre Poilievre didn't, and that's why Pierre Poilievre isn't going to get anything for Western Canada. He's going to lose, and he's going to lose politely at this point.
Sees you as nothing more than a colony. And that is how an issue that polls around 20% can win the day. A radical minority burning it down, a conduit premier, and a sleepwalking, flabby majority. That's us. I know many of us progressives have a complex history with the flag, and rightfully so. But if we are too cool or conflicted to fly it, we are surrendering it to the people who want to burn it. Canada is a rare project, a multiracial society based on anonymous trust. Nowhere else.
That's not what it is. Sorry.
Well, and
that's not what it is.
It's very interesting because only recently have the Liberals been able to capture this flag back. I can't believe Pierre Poilievre gave that up. Yeah. If they didn't have the flag right now, they would have no national symbol to go against Alberta independence. It's obvious what their strategy is going to be. Nationalists against separatists. He wants to get the polling high enough with the nationalists so he can justify using the Emergencies Act. He's also going to want to bring a lot of TDS in there in order to try to turn Alberta against Donald Trump.
But also with the flag, no, Albertans don't want the Canadian flag. They want their own flag. And that's why that's the only thing you see flying now.
Is pulling this off, or frankly even trying. If we don't wake up, we're not going to beat Alberta Brexit. We're in fact volunteering to be its sequel with a very, very hurt.
And why are they so scared of democracy? They always talk about democracy, democracy, but when it comes to a real vote on democracy, they want to demonize it rather than just let it happen. And as the summertime comes, it's only going to ramp up. Again, that's by far the best piece of propaganda they've had so far, and I've watched it all. So.
But also, it's going there. Part of why they're so upset, I think, is because it's putting a mirror up to the reality that is Canada and everything that is happening in Canada that they don't want to see. So the cognitive dissonance grows in them and says, no, but I like Canada. I like how progressive and great we are. But then all the issues that are very obvious now, but that they don't want to see, just come boiling up to the surface. And it makes them angry.
Well, and it's very obvious at this point, the separatist parties within Quebec are just controlled opposition. They originally said they wanted to take a vote on separatism this year. Then they said 2027. Now the new talking point is 2030. The federal government does not want a Quebec independence movement going at the same time an Alberta independence movement is going, because if they give Quebec a bunch of goodies to shut them up and they don't do the same to Alberta, it's going to be very obvious their hypocrisy. And I will say, even if they give a lot of natural resource contracts and oil pipelines, which I think they will as this vote comes closer, it comes with so many strings. They want you to adopt these such high climate regulations that they go up year after year after year. Eventually, you're going to put your own oil and natural resource business out of business.
But also not, and with the by-elections coming up and the 10 floor crossers apparently that Carney has, plus all the polling saying that he's doing great somehow. I still don't know how. And then the China deal that he just has gone over to fully sign with bankers, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. More and more, we continue to see sometimes, not that many Albertans, but still national conservatives trying to defend the Conservative Party, which unfortunately, and yes, sadly, can no longer be that spark of hope that I think a lot of us had in Pierre Poilievre, in the Conservative Party, because it's almost impossible because of the rigged system that has been there since the beginning for the Conservative Party to win or win soon or in a few months. They can't.
Well, with 3 by-elections coming up that are in heavily favored Liberal districts and a lot of money going into those by-elections, as well as rumored up to 10 floor crossers. And normally you would just take that as rhetoric, but with the new leadership in the NDP, it looks like a large majority of those are coming over from the NDP. So he will not only have a majority, he will have a super majority. And where's that going to lead Canada then?
But Alberta is that spark of hope, and that should start being that spark of hope for more and more people. Paul Mitchell says the Conservatives are not going to win federally. The Liberals have imported millions of migrants, which are steadily being transformed into new Canadians. The Liberals have the votes of huge numbers of government workers, elbows up boomers, big city socialists, and now that the federal NDP has chosen to go to the extreme crazy left, many traditional NDP voters will also move to the big tent Liberals.
Okay, and yeah, let's talk about this for a minute. I think it really surprised the government, the fact that Alberta was so fast to independence, and they have so many roadblocks out of their way, unlike other provinces. They're caught a little bit off guard here. They weren't able to flood Alberta with the amount of immigrants they would have liked to. They're going to make sure that doesn't happen after this vote. Every other province, they're currently putting roadblocks in front of, whether that's the 30 by 30 project or increased immigration.
Conservative Albertans need to face the facts. The Canada they used to know is gone, and the post-national socialist state with no core values is here to stay. The only way that a conservative Albertans can regain a positive and prosperous future for their families is to fire Ottawa and choose Alberta's independence. Because, yeah, Canada keeps voting for left-wing, insane governments.
We have a situation with the radicalization of the NDP. You saw the clips from their convention, that we're not going to get the vote split that we used to get between the NDP and the Liberals. If you look at any time when the Conservatives have formed a government in Ottawa, it's because the left split their vote. We're going to have a perpetual Liberal government now because so few people are going to vote for the extremists and the crazies, literally, in the NDP. There's almost no hope that the Conservatives are going to take power. And as a result, the ideologues know that they're going to stay in power and they can continue to play these games to the detriment of Albertans. We have a situation with...
And they will.
Well, yeah, and this is the other big point I keep bringing up. The system has historically been rigged, but now the power has been completely consolidated, hollowing out the NDP into the Liberals with possibly up to 10 other floor crossers. Just the basic layout of the Canadian political system and electoral seats. I mean, you name it, it's not going to happen now. And I'm still shocked that National Conservatives aren't waking up to this and realizing Alberta independence is the only way forward if you even want to save a sliver of Canada.
And we've even brought this point up sometimes that if Alberta leaves, the Liberals have even more of a majority. So in a way, maybe they might realize it benefits them and just kind of let them go. Yes, if they lose BC, Saskatchewan is also kind of in that same place as Alberta, but they would help them consolidate and further ruin to the detriment of all the citizens of Canada. But that's what it would do as well.
Yeah, what I think you're trying to say is
say it easier.
One of the big game plans Mark Carney might have if we don't see a pushback for some reason in the summertime is he's really aligning with China. They want to capture the natural resources of Canada. They're doing it through land grabs by the 30 by 30 program as well. They're coming for the sovereignty of individual provinces and they want to nationalize Canada. The one province that will build the framework and push back and show other provinces how to do it is Alberta. If they just let Alberta go and let this vote happen, they're going to have an easy time consolidating everything and routing a lot of those natural resources over to China.
Exactly, and we know where the priorities lie because Ryan Girdison says in Canada, the media puts the voice of immigrant communities ahead of the voice of millions of Canadians, because again, millions of Canadians are no longer important. Just listen to how this reporter is talking. Tens of thousands of young Canadians can't find work due to our government flooding the country with immigrants and then prioritizing them in hiring. The media ignores them. Of course, we just saw those lines in Calgary of thousands of young kids waiting to get into a job fair that only had 80 employers in there.
Well, and again, if they are these job fairs and there's these long lineups, petitioners should go out there and talk to these kids, or people from Alberta Independence should go talk to these kids, because these kids are going to be angry and disenfranchised. Even if they don't sign the petition, they're going to be really ready to wake up to where the federal government is taking Canada and Alberta in the process.
And just in general, talk to young people around you and talk about this topic specifically too.
Hearing from immigrant communities that some of them are quite upset about all of the referendum questions you're putting forward on immigration, including Dr. Raj Sherman, who says that they're divisive and this is not what Alberta needs right now. He's actually calling for new leadership, a new premier. How do you respond to that, and why is it important to put those questions forward at this time?
I wish Justin Trudeau had put the question forward when he upended 40 years of established immigration policy, but he didn't.
And pause it there for a second. And I like what Danielle Smith has done lately. She has come a little bit back towards Alberta independence. If you don't know, she said she'll put Alberta independence question on the top on a separate ballot. She'll count that ballot first. If citizens want independence and they approve it by a 51% vote, they're not going to even tally the other questions because she does not want to muddy the waters. Although I didn't necessarily like the other 9 questions because I think it's very obvious when she puts it in the context is I wish Justin Trudeau would have done that and asked the citizens before he would have done a lot of things. Yeah, I wish he would have too.
But at the same time, even if she was forced by the federal government, Alberta did import as well a lot of people, way more than they could handle, and now is trying to backtrack on it. But again, that is what having the imposition of the federal government on top of you will continue to do, regardless of the questions.
Basically took all the limits off all of the temporary program streams, international students, temporary foreign workers, especially low skill, as well as asylum seekers. And as a result, we ended up with an imbalance. Our historic system gave points based on an individual's ability to integrate seamlessly into the economy. They had to have certain job skills, they had to have facility in one of the 2 official languages, and that was the priority. And what we see instead is that our repeated calls to return to that priority have been ignored. We have been asking for some time to have about 30,000 provincial nominees chosen by the province, very similar to what Quebec does, in order that we can provide the demand that we're seeing for provincial nominees, including since we have a large number of Ukrainian evacuees who settled here.
Okay, you can leave it there. And I will like to say this. When Alberta gets its independence, it should not adopt some kind of international standard for immigration. It should be very hard-nosed on immigration. And the limiting factor, I believe, to Alberta's economy once it gets its independence and a lot of the regulations and strings that the Canadian government is tying them down with are kind of let go, I think that economy is going to boom. And the limiting factor is going to be the amount of people you have. You're going to need people, but you don't want to just flood them in from anywhere. If you do that, you're going to see Alberta turn from a conservative province to a very liberalized hellhole, like what happened to Vancouver, British Columbia, and a lot of other places.
All of Canada. It's essentially just going back to the same thing you've been trying to leave. And one of the reasons why you wanted to
want countries with shared moral values, a shared identity, maybe even a shared language, and you want to make the immigration a long-term process, not people that are just coming there to work and then leaving.
But also, especially with the examples we already have of how this type of immigration, mass immigration, has worked in other places, including Canada, but also the UK, Australia, elsewhere, Germany, you have the perfect example to say, no, we already tried that. We've seen how that works. So it's not controversial for us to have this stance because we've seen the results of doing this for 30, 40 years already.
Absolutely.
So don't blame us for wanting to protect our own new country. At the same time, I would say it is important. Yes, there is population collapse, and that is also an issue for Alberta, but putting in programs that help the young people, the young Canadians, actual Canadians, have children, have the opportunities to have a good job, have children, be able to foster their own population instead of just needing to import. Yes, it's going to take longer, but at the same time, it's going to be and help Alberta be a lot more prosperous than if you just continue down the path of, well, we're not going to really listen to our young people or what they need or their opportunities, but we need workers, so we're just going to focus on that. No, focus on giving families a real chance because that helps build out the country and the nation overall.
Yeah, the family, the working class, and the farmers need to be put at the center of society. These are the people that are building real things in a real economy, not just paper pushers and politicians that shuffle around money to make the illusion like we're making more money as they shove it all into their pockets. Radical transparency is also something you're going to want to bring in at every level of government and the private sector, because it's the more you monitor government and the more you limit it, the more powerful corporations are going to get. So you need radical transparency on both sides.
And while we have given Smith quite a bit of praise lately about her switching how the questions are going to be tallied, et cetera, unfortunately, as a federal politician, if she continues trying to make things work with Canada and getting deals and trying to highlight those as very important, well, again, as Marty here says, I think it's only a matter of time before she finally realizes that all her efforts to get us a better deal are futile because in the end, you would still be under the control of the federal government, and that imbalance and inequity, that is historic.
Alberta has been treated unfairly for decades long before that. We've built roads, rail, power, jobs, and prosperity for this country. Yet we've been told to keep quiet and be grateful while sending $20 billion a year more to Ottawa than we receive back in funding each year. In fact, since 1980, Alberta has contributed $653 billion more to federal...
And you see all those places, those remittance payments are going. A lot of those places have oil, have natural gas, and have resources. They're currently buying it from Australia, from the Middle East, rather than Alberta. Why? Why don't they want to drill for their own oil, their own natural gas? Because then they won't be able to get the remittance payments from Alberta.
Taxes than we receive back. That means well over $500 billion went directly from Alberta to fund other provinces, mostly with economies larger than ours, through programs, transfers, and equalization. And despite this, we have continued to be the economic engine and job-creating juggernaut of this country, and have opened our province to those from every corner of Canada looking for work and opportunity. And when we point out these facts, how do Ottawa politicians and Eastern elites respond? Our concerns are dismissed, our values marginalized, our leaders vilified, and our industries remain targeted. Alberta has been treated unfairly.
Yeah, and it's fantastic that she's pointing all that out. But when these MOUs are coming out and these possible pipelines, there's so many strings attached. It's almost not even worth it. You should be looking to the U.S. and to deregulate.
But also, for a metaphor, the federal government is like a bull in a china shop. And you, as a china shop, Alberta, as a china shop owner, keeps trying to say, oh, no, please don't do this. Oh, no, please don't destroy that part. No, please give us a chance. But at the end of the day, even if you can restrain the bull a little bit, or you can come to some sort of agreement with an insane animal that doesn't understand reason, eventually it'll break free and keep breaking all your shop until there's no shop left. So yes, you can try to negotiate with the bull that doesn't understand what you're saying, but in the end, it's going to end up destroying it anyways.
Well, and this is why Alberta has the most likely chance to succeed of any independence movement in the world. And like I said, there are dozens. We're talking Central America, South America, Scotland, Saskatchewan, Quebec. But even if you look at Quebec, they have the natural resources. They just never developed that sector. So they don't have the refineries. If they separate, they're then going to have to build that infrastructure. That's going to take well over a decade. They won't be able to survive. And that's why I think even a lot of countries that do have natural resources wouldn't have the ability for independence like Alberta does. And the salt of the earth people from Alberta that know how to pull up their bootstraps and have already been working hard for decades. Imagine how hard they're going to be working when they're their own country and working for themselves.
And this one, I don't really know how to introduce.
And I think this is the last one for the section?
No, there's two more.
Oh, okay.
This one and another one. But Marty up north thing, here's a one-line summary of each of Tristan's 8 points.
Oh, and I
don't know who Tristan is.
I just want you to...
Do you want me to go here? Or
no, I want you to go to the top.
Okay.
Just read out the highlighted sections there.
Okay, so housing crisis, crime and justice, harm reduction, and substances, ending your own life via medically or the MAID program, healthcare system, transgender policies, identity politics, and anti-racism, quote unquote, censorship, and speech laws.
Yeah, these are a lot of the cultural issues just put it out in quick bullet point form that they have no way to address. What I've noticed so far with the nationalists, they want to frame everything around economics. And as long as they can frame it around economics, oh, Alberta's disgruntled because we won't give them pipelines or natural resources. As the vote comes closer, they're going to throw a goodie bag at you and say, we have solved the issue. If we focus on a lot of these issues and the nationalists don't have an answer for it and they can't fix them because this is at the root of who they are and what they want for Canada.
And it's not, again, just economic. And here Marty says Canada took progressive ideas further and faster than peers, quite a bit, almost always with cascading negative consequences, turning a once stable nation into a totally dysfunctional one or an insane asylum. He's right in saying Danielle Smith is the only one finally acknowledging that things aren't working and is trying to reverse some of these bad ideas, but it's not enough to save or to make Alberta step away from it. You have to fully leave the insane asylum.
Yeah, and what I've been saying, after the 13th, if Mark Carney does get the majority government with the 3 by-elections and possibly even have a bunch of floor crossers come over with his supermajority there, it's going to be interesting what Poilievre does. I personally think Mark Carney is going to call him in and say, you need to put Canada first. We need to come together and you need to shut down the independence movement. And I think he may very well end up being that voice against Alberta independence. What I hope he does is start speaking up and raising some of the concerns that Albertans have to put pressure on the federal government, like Danielle Smith is. Not because I want to stay part of Canada, but because if the independence vote doesn't go the way that I hope, they should be building a safety net for Western Canada.
But also the fact that so many other citizens within Canada are okay with the state that it is in and apparently want to continue to cheer it on. And again, it's crazy to me how high up Carney is in the polls, fake or not, but the fact that they have had quite multiple opportunities to not get to the point to where they are, and yet they continue to be willingly blind to what's happening and to the issues that also affect them. The Rise of Alberta says you will drive gas-powered trucks, you will own guns, the guns Ottawa hates, you will eat Alberta beef, you will afford a home, you will prosper, you will live free, you will defy the globalists, you will support Alberta independence.
Yeah, and the reason I put this in and leave this on there is we need to start focusing on promises we're going to make to Albertans once it's its own independent nation. And I understand there's no firm constitution out there yet, and there's not a firm leader. Keith Wilson is the closest thing that we have. I really wish he would step up officially in that framework. That being said, these are a lot of things I think almost all Albertans can agree on that we want, and we should start saying, this is what we want. This is what Alberta independence means. It's unofficially being said, but we need something a little bit more firm for people that are on the fence to say these are the guarantees that we want for Alberta going forward.
And that's it.
Okay.
So I'll now read some of your comments, if not all of them, then we'll move on to Alberta personalities and some people we want to highlight.
Yeah, and there's some people within the Alberta independence movement that are helping Alberta independence or we want to highlight. And one of them was new to me that I just discovered today.
Jason GP says, I'm a him. I knew it. That's why I kept saying he. Told you. Ghost of a Chance, hello, says, we have the Rachel Notley diapers for 5 years when Wild Rose and the Progressives split the vote. There's already been examples. Exactly. Jason GP, he says, thanks for combing through the liberal propaganda so we don't have to. Oh, and I'm a him. Darn universal name. I know, but I figured probably him. But you never know. Again, I insane. As Edward says, the boss does not use pronouns. The pronoun game. And that's why I usually don't want to ask, because I don't want to be like the insane people, but at the same time, I do want to know how to address you. Republic of Alberta says, I believe Alberta only needs 30 congressional sponsors to be recognized as an independent state. According to the 11th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, we have officially secured 42 sponsors. And I'd be interested to know how, I mean, right now there's 42 and only needs 30, so those are basically already all, you already have them all. But if the United States as a country recognizes you, then the Shield of the Americas and the countries within that would also almost automatically also recognize you as an independent country. So that, I guess, would just add on more weight if you only need 30 congressional sponsors within the U.S. itself, and you already have 42.
Yeah, there's a ton of countries that are going to recognize you internationally because of what Trump is trying to do with the Western Hemisphere and the Shield of Americas. A lot of people, we live in Mexico now. A lot of people in Alberta may not understand the Shield of Americas, and what he's trying to do in the Western Hemisphere is having major repercussions right now in even South and Central America.
Mm-hmm.
So
positive ones.
Yeah, very, very good ones. Yeah. And all those countries, if Trump requests it, they're all going to recognize Alberta at the founding of its independence.
Yeah. Troglodyte says, the Canada of my childhood was 96% white. Multiculturalism is something forced on us without a vote starting in the 60s. And it goes, yeah, exactly. It goes back way more years than I think people even realize or recognize. And even the discourses of a lot of these countries saying, oh, but we're a nation of immigrants. We're a multicultural nation. No, that's not how it started. You're a nation of settlers, which is different. But at the same time, this little speech and this narrative has been imposed upon a lot of people for way longer than I think that they realized.
Yeah, multiculturalism under this, the liberal vision of multiculturalism is especially failed. I grew up in very multicultural communities, whether it was I grew up half in Canada, half in the United States, or in the United States. And what happened before was when people immigrated, especially to the United States, there was a unifying identity they were expected to adopt. That's no longer the case in the States, Canada, or any Western countries anymore. And it's okay to have some immigration, but you definitely need a unifying identity for these immigrants to adopt, not telling them keep your own identity, because now what you're creating are dual loyalties.
And multiculturalism is not a unifying identity at its core, at its foundation, and the concept of it is not unifying, it's to divide. Republic of Alberta says, I need to review the amendment. I'll look into it too, and if I can, we usually put issue corrections in our comments if we figure out that something we said was wrong on the show.
What amendment was that?
In the U.S., that you only need 30 congressional states to recognize you as an independent country. I'll look into it as well and correct it if wrong.
Conservatives in the United States are definitely approving Alberta independence without a shadow of a doubt, every single red state. So
Primrose007 says, going for my walk, but I will be listening. Thank you so much. Be
thank
safe
you.
out on your walk.
Yeah, and if you haven't subscribed or liked, please do so. We're a very small channel and we're really starting to grow. The larger we get, the easier it is for us to get interviews. We're starting to reach out to people and we're having a pretty good response so far.
Yeah. Justin GP, he says, not to yell at that Canada flag comment was awesome. Love both of your enthusiasm. It's infuriating sometimes. Ghost of a Chance says, Pierre Poilievre just abandoned my riding after I voted to put him back in Parliament. Battle River Crowfoot, Pierre Poilievre is failing to read the room regarding Alberta independence, and his view on it on Rogan was less than shallow. And we spoke at length about it, but
we've talked a lot about this, and it really pissed me off how when he needed his seat, he ran to
Alberta.
He ran to Alberta, and specifically that riding. That is a huge independence riding. He not only slapped him in the face, he came out directly against him. He could have taken a little bit of different line and still coming down on the nationalist side, much like Danielle Smith is doing. He chose not to do that. I really think he understands there's going to be a lot of separatist parties forming in Western Canada that want real conservatism now, and they won't vote for the National Conservative Party. They would rather have a coalition of hardcore conservative parties that unite on votes and stuff like that going forward. And I think he wants to crush that. And I think if he loses and Carney gets that majority government, he may become the main voice against Alberta independence, trying to crush any small parties coming up in BC, like the BC One Party or separatist parties coming up in Alberta as well. He's going to be the most interesting figure to kind of keep an eye on.
And also with his traipsing around the U.S. now instead of doing it before the last elections, which is crazy, still crazy to me that he's doing it now when it's pretty much inconsequential, especially if he's not out there to support Alberta independence or use Alberta independence as the hinge point to say this, they want to be independent and good on them if they want to because of what's going on in the rest of Canada, and this is what I want to do to fix it. No, he's going completely against Alberta independence, dismissing the whole movement and the whole opportunity he himself has. But
we had a lot of stories today.
Okay, sorry. But yes, Pierre Poilievre.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but we both been talking quite a bit.
Okay.
And I think the National Canada section today is huge stories on how the government's trying to interfere.
Let me read
but I did want to say, the reason it's so insane that he didn't do it before the last election is he's doing amazing when he's doing a lot of these interviews. Now, I don't like his stance on Alberta independence, but people are absolutely eating it up as national conservatives. Why didn't he do this when it mattered?
But also, sadly, right now it's a pipe dream. Everything he's outlining that he wants to do or the issues that he sees are pretty much inconsequential for him to say because he will not get that majority, he will not get the votes, and he will not get in power as he wants to be. Let me read three more. Sorry.
Okay.
Republic of Alberta says Trump is not the deciding factor. The sponsors are valid whether Trump is in office or not. Oh, that's interesting too. So I'll look into it further as well.
Yeah.
James, hello, says, hey, Pierre, you sure about that? Troglodyte says, Poilievre will lose support in Alberta, historically a conservative stalwart. After the floor crossing, his party is toast. And exactly.
Okay, and we'll read some comments between each section, and then we'll try to read them all at the end. But we want to get through a lot of these sections because I put a lot of stories today by accident.
Yes, so let's...
Not by accident, but there was just a lot of news today.
But let's highlight some other interesting people as well.
But they need to understand that Albertans are done, we're leaving, and there's no more conversation to be had. I know that's upsetting to people.
And starting with, hold on, there we go. Starting with, this is from freedomcalendar.net. Go follow Freedom Calendar as well because he's been highlighting every single get-together that has been...
Conference.
Thank you. Conference get-together that there has been regarding Alberta independence, but says the younger generation needs to stand up with Homes, and they are the ones that we want to highlight.
Yeah, Home with Homes is a family from Alberta, 2 daughters and a father. Very, very interesting content. They're a very small channel, so if you don't know them or you're not subscribed to them, I highly recommend subscribing to them. I was very impressed by their content, especially their shorts. Shorts are always my biggest weak point on YouTube, especially the father. Man, he was able to make these really nice, concise shorts that took one issue at a time and just really delve into it so you understood it by the end of the 60 seconds.
Yeah, as you can tell by lack of shorts on this channel.
So the censorship is only going to continue, and my generation will never be able to say anything. We'll always have our tails tucked between our legs, and then we'll have the older generations looking at us going, where are your balls, essentially? And we can't give them an answer because, well, we can't talk about it.
And that was very well put, very close. I think they're like 20, 21 years old. They're very young to do public speaking, and they're doing a fantastic job. So keep up the great work there. I think we have a clip from their actual channel though.
Yes, and I also always want to continue to embolden and empower, I hate that word, but empower the younger generation to speak up, because you will be the most important ones in a few years, if not now. And you will be able to take those ideas and run with them.
Yeah, and how I actually discovered them, because I thought I knew everybody within the Alberta independence content creation space. I watch a lot of it. The thing was, they had a very small channel. They had never popped up for me. But Alex Craner here, as well as Tom Longo, I've been longtime followers. I followed them for years. And somehow they got an interview with them. And because they got an interview with them, they popped up on my feed. And I said, oh, wow, they're interviewing them about Alberta independence. Because both Alex Craner and Tom Longo are people that I wanted to interview about Alberta independence. So I was glad they did it.
And also go subscribe to them. I'm not on here. This is our official YouTube account. I am on my personal account, but go subscribe as well. Let's watch a little bit, asking whose battlefield are we on?
Alrighty. Hello, everybody. This is another episode. Actually, this is part 2 of our new segment. This is whose battlefield are we on? The first episode was with lovely Miss Colonel Towner Watkins, because ladies first. And now we have, this is Alex Craner for part 2. And if people haven't read the description or you didn't catch the first episode, largely the title of whose battlefield is this on is because we all the time are given our enemies, and that's across the board, because when you have a movement, you need something to rally behind. And that was something that why we brought on Colonel Towner Watkins, was because as in the military always gives you your enemy, so you feel you are fighting for a proper cause. And so we had gotten her journey. What was it like? The enemy that they gave you, is it still the enemy that you find you're fighting now? And so this series is largely on how to change your axioms, because all of these people that, you know, our family listens to on a regular, they're very intelligent people, but what is the correlation between these intelligent people? They have to change their minds quite often, because that's the thing with digging and doing research, is that you don't always find things to support your bias, and so you have to remap on a regular basis. And so we've brought on Alex Craner today because he also is an individual that we have watched. He's had to change his axioms going throughout his research. And so largely what we're going to do is we're going to see what was it like fighting
and you can leave it there. I just wanted to give kind of a taste of who they were. The gentleman in the top left corner was the father, the 2 women were the daughters, and that was Alex Craner. And that's how I found him. And I did a deep dive into their content today, and I said, oh, these people are absolutely fantastic. We very often focus on the news and what's going on in Alberta independence. We can profile up to 40 to 50 stories in a show. We used to do a 3-hour show. We didn't sit down to 2, but it's very high paced. We don't get a chance to really dive as deep as they are into a lot of these issues. They also went into the APP prosperity documents and just read it page by page. And the father was very good at reading and very clear and concise, because I had seen other channels do the same thing, but it just wasn't sticking to me. He was very, very fantastic at that part as well.
But also, I love that introduction and saying that the highly intelligent people have to change, and everybody in general have to be willing to change their stances if their research and their information does not continue and correlate with the bias. And I think that we're seeing a lot of infighting within not so much the Alberta independence movement, but in general, conservative movement, the liberal, everybody's infighting because they're not willing to accept that if someone changes the stance, it might be because the paradigm of what they were or their bias has been shifted through research or through looking further into things, instead of just putting roots on the ground and saying, no, this will be my forever position, and then not accepting when somebody discovers, or maybe through research looks into something further and says, oh, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Like the people that say maybe I'm wrong, I think are the ones that were worth listening to.
Yeah, definitely. Their channel's also very interesting because there's 3 of them, so they kind of work like a little mini think tank and throw ideas off of each other while they're reading the Prosperity Project documents or other things like that. So very often me and you are just agree a lot, so we just story after story after story.
Sometimes we disagree a lot, though.
A little bit, mainly on geopolitics.
Yes, we have a strong debate.
Just give their name again of their channel so people know.
Yes, it's home, like a home with the homes. Home with Homes, HOLMES. They also have a Substack. I think they're a lot more, very active on their Substack, so go follow them there as well.
Yeah. And then we have one more person to profile here.
Yes. I'm not sure which one we're profiling, but Sean Newman says, Two of the sharpest macro minds out there, Tom Longo and Alex Craner, with Mark Carney now steering Canada. The global banking cartel's agenda is finally coming into full view.
Yeah, and we've already profiled Tom Longo on this channel and talked about him a lot. He is a great geopolitical thinker as well as an economic thinker. I mainly brought this to talk about Alex Craner, but Alex Craner and Tom Longo very often appear on similar think tanks or interviews together. So yeah, very interesting. I thought I would profile Alex Craner because he did do the interview with that other channel about Alberta. Both of them are big supporters of Alberta independence, along with Martin Armstrong. So it's nice to see Americans and some international minds like Alex Craner supporting Alberta independence.
It makes perfect sense then that they would put Carney in charge of Canada at this point. I think there's two things going on here. One, I think the British Crown is trying to reassert control over Canada because I think Carney works for the British Crown first, where Freeland maps to Ukraine and to directly to Davos, even though they both have deep ties to both.
I think it's great that Carney's going to be the Prime Minister of Canada because, you know, the farther this goes, the harder it is for them to do their dirty deeds in, how do you call it, behind the scenes. It's all coming into the light. Now we're getting to that Lord Acton 150-year-old quote, which he said, "The issue that has swept down the centuries and which will have to be fought sooner or later is people versus the banks." And now we're having bankers everywhere. You know, Mario Monti, Mario Draghi, Friedrich Merz. Okay, he's not a banker, but he's a BlackRock. Emmanuel Macron, Mark Carney. It's kind of becoming very obvious. And now his whole... Okay, so I've followed Mark Carney for many years now. And at first I thought, wow, really smart, really sophisticated. I listened to many of his interviews, speeches, articles he published here and there. But then, you know, as you pay attention, you realize that they're just going on a script. And the man is actually very unimpressive. When the Dark Lord becomes...
Okay, and we can leave it there. And the second guy there was Alex Craner. The first gentleman was Tom Longo. They're both absolutely fantastic. And I hope more people in the Alberta independence movement start interviewing people and reaching out to content creators, not only in the US, but internationally, especially as censorship ramps up in Canada. They're not going to be able to touch the people that are outside of Canada.
And we are following our own advice, and we are trying to, again, get interviews with interesting people and start doing that work ourselves as well.
Yeah, well, we started cutting down on our edited videos because we want to start ramping up on interviews. We had to work out the technology, program a lot of things into our little ATEM here, and now we're trying to figure out how to reach out to people to ask for interviews, and now we're starting to schedule it. Yes. So hopefully they'll start appearing next week.
Yes, but yes, at the beginning, we probably will have some technical issues, so please bear with us when that happens. But thank you so much also for your support. Let's read some comments and then we'll go into Alberta's Canada, or reasons as to why Alberta should leave.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of big news for Canadian politics today related to Alberta. So
and I'm glad that there Alex Craner ended with talking about the banks and how the battle will eventually be there, because Canada, you are there now. So we'll go into that when we go to the section. But Sam says, Laurentia is suffering dementia. That should be on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
If it's not on a t-shirt, somebody please make a t-shirt that says that. Maybe we will eventually. Republic of Alberta says, read Pierre's voting record. He's voted in favor of more liberal legislation than conservative. He's a Laurentian and has accomplished nothing for Alberta for 20 years.
Yeah, and I do understand
he consistently say that.
Well, and I do understand he's a nationalist and he has to appease Eastern Bloc voters if he wants to win a national election. But this is why I'm saying going forward, whether Alberta succeeds or fails with their independence movement, it needs to be a coalition of conservative parties now, because what's happening are the liberal parties are dragging Poilievre further and further and liberalizing them every year. There's nothing to kind of pull back.
I don't know if I would say the liberals are doing that. I say, in my opinion, he is a career politician. I'm very against career politicians. So in the end, he's just there to vie for power and vie for himself. And I think he's realizing there's no chance of him having power. So he has to align further with the place where the power is. Yeah. So liberals. Sam says, I have no problem with the other 8 questions, but no one in Ottawa will even read them, even if we all voted yes. Independence or Ottawa rules us in perpetuity, as it has continued to do. Republic says foreign workers send their earnings home.
Well, one more thing. It's not about Ottawa not listening to the 8 questions. Like, she has the power to implement a lot of the stuff on her own without asking those questions. And it's very obvious that those are things people already want.
Yes. Republic of Alberta says foreign workers send their earnings home instead of spending them in Canada's economy. It's devastated small businesses, and that too. Exactly. Silverfeed, hello, says, idea, the new Albertan government should give all CUAET holders, Albertan citizenship on separation. What do you both think of that? CU, Canadian? I don't know what CUAT.
I don't know.
ET means. Okay. I'll look into it and then ask you again after.
Well, maybe just clarify the question, what that actually was.
The acronym means.
I don't know the acronym.
Me either. Troglodyte says, yes, and to make it worse, our taxes subsidize those wages, so we borrow to send it to India. So we borrow to send, the money to India.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Republic says, it's way more than 20 billion annually. We send around 75 billion and get back around 25 to 28 billion, mostly in CPP, which is also terribly invested. So the Canadian pension plan investment side is completely losing in the markets as well.
There's a lot of other ways. Alberta is sending a lot of money over to Ottawa. It's up to like 68 billion when I was reading the APP papers. It was more than the statistics that I normally cite. So I'm going to have to really dig into this more, because I think Ottawa's really robbing Alberta blind in more ways than we actually understand.
Oh, I know what CUAT means. Canada-Ukraine authorization for emergency travel.
Oh, so now what was the original question?
Okay. Let's see what it said. The new Albertan government should give all Canada-Ukraine authorization for emergency travel holders, Albertan citizenship on separation.
I don't know. I'd have to kind of think about it. I'm currently right now thinking about immigration policies that we want to have for Alberta and what are proper immigration policies in general. A lot of places don't need immigration because they just don't have the economy to support it. Alberta is much different because its economy, once it really starts to boom, it's going to need people, but it's going to have to be very strict on the type of immigration. Otherwise, it is going to become something it does not want to be, and that is just like the rest of Canada.
Harmony says, we really didn't have much or any input in regard to choosing a flag. I was teaching back then. Pearson was the PM. And I also think that looking into what the Canadian flag used to be and then the propaganda to bring in this new one, there was an older lady that
it's not because I don't like, I'm still thinking about the last question. It's not because I don't like Ukrainians. It's just because if you set a precedent with Ukrainians, you're going to have to set a similar precedent with other groups and things like that. So it needs to be, immigration needs to be worked out in a cohesive manner.
Regarding the flag, I do think that Canada should have stayed with its other flag. And it was this maple leaf flag. And the idea to change the flag was to, I think, further that idea of the multiculturalism and Canada's a nation of immigrants and it has no real identity because, maple leaf is an identifier. But as Republic of Alberta says, the maple tree only grows naturally in Laurentian Canada. Enough said. And maybe it is representative of what Canada actually was going to be and now is and has been turned into. So, okay.
And we do. Oh, that's it?
No, we have more. But
no, we have. Let's just keep going with the stories because we're running behind time a little bit right now.
Let's go to Alberta's Canada or further reasons for Alberta to become independent.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
And we will try to read all the comments at the end of the show and periodically throughout the sections, but I want to make sure we get to all the stories today because they are really important, and we have missed some crucial stories last week.
Yes. Starting with, very crucial, Mark Nixon says, WTF, Liberals are talking to 10 more potential floor crossers. This country's a disaster. A complete joke. And yet people like Mark Nixon, I think, should be speaking more about Alberta independence.
Well, and I think he's starting to come around, so.
After this.
A cup of tea in Terrebonne.
Yeah, exactly. Quite a few cups. Do you agree with the assessment around the election?
Yes. Mr. Carney does not want an election, but also he's got some key people talking to opposition parties. I'm told up to 10 MPs are still in discussion with Liberal delegates from Mr. Carney's office. So there's still discussion going on. So they're still hoping to get more of opposition MPs from the Conservative Party or even the NDP, not the Bloc Québécois, I don't think, but it's still a possibility that more may cross the floor to join the Liberal candidate. So a cup of tea.
And this is concerning. I mean, this is democracy out the door. If this doesn't send a message to Albertans, like the Canadian political system was already rigged in favor of Liberals, but having this many potential floor crossers, the fact that you're in talks with 10, you've already had 3 or 4 come over, you already probably get into majority with 3 by-elections. I mean, Conservatives in National Canada need to wake up, and what he's currently doing with politics, National Conservatives need to get behind Alberta independence. It is going to send a message and really save what were Canadian values, which are now only really Albertan values.
And again, Canada is now fully, as we can see, banana republic. I mean, these kinds of things, shaking down people and candidates from the other side to join your party, is how, like in Mexico currently, the Morena party has completely destroyed every single branch of government so they can instill their and put their own people there and do whatever they want, legislatively and elsewhere.
Well,
judicially, which is worrying.
Why do you need a snap election?
So it's already happened.
Why do you need a snap election when you got 3 by-elections and 10 floor crossers ready to cross?
Exactly. And again, I think the Conservatives that don't open up their eyes to the actual communist dictatorship you're walking into should do so pretty quickly, or just turn themselves into Liberals, which we have continuously seen from actual MPs.
I think their eyes are open, and I think a uniparty is starting to form here.
Exactly. Canada has gone mad. Yes. So it's holy F. This is national ending of life. Canada just aligned our banks and finances. This was over the weekend as well. Easter weekend.
I talked about this on yesterday's episode, but I wanted to bring it back up because I have a secondary article to kind of join the two together.
Again, take the news that we just read and then pair it with this and then realize where you're standing. Canada just aligned our banks and finances with Communist China in Beijing. You know, the regime that launders substance money through our casinos, spikes our housing market, imprisons our citizens on fake charges, slaps random tariffs, and gifted the world COVID. Now we're handing them the keys to our financial system right before the USMCA review. There's not going to be a review probably at this point. Americans are going to nuke this. Goodbye trade deal. Hello economic collapse. Carney's government has lost its damn mind. No, this has been the plan all along. Treasonous levels of stupidity. No, they're actually doing exactly what they wanted to do.
Yeah, and I think Trump was always joking about the 51st state, and Carney's starting to make that a reality by his actions. Like, if America's not going to look at not only this as a threat, but a number of things we outline on here, the Canadian military is currently recruiting from foreign militaries into their ranks to give them citizenship. Not only the CCP, but the Indian military as well. They're having CCP security companies secure natural resource sector in Canada with illegal weapons that the Canadian government is trying to currently disarm from its own citizens. With these trade deals and any number of other things, they are running into the CCP's arms. Trump is not going to take this nicely. Alberta needs to separate before Canada shows itself to be a severe threat to America, and America actually has to do something about it.
But also, when Mexico gets a bilateral trade deal with the U.S., and the USMCA is basically toilet paper at this point because it includes Canada, and Canada doesn't get to be in those reviews or in that reimagining of a trade deal, then they're going to all scream and yell that the U.S. is at fault, that they don't want to trade with us. And just remind everybody that they did this during Easter weekend, and that the joining of the banking system with China's and the deals that they have continuously sought after, they themselves, Carney's government, is what caused it, not the U.S.
Well, with a majority government and up to 10 floor crossers, even if you only have 3 or 4, you have a real majority there. He no longer is going to have to negotiate with Trump. He can drive the country off a cliff and go into China's arms at that point.
Oh, it's just them sitting there.
Yeah, it was mainly about what was set up top, and this was the contract signings with the Chinese banks themselves.
And the big banks of Canada, essentially all big banks.
And a lot of people don't know, but China owns most of the mining companies within Canada. I used to work within the mining industry, and says made by Canada or owned by Canada. No, it's all owned by China, and they're constantly lobbying the federal government to bring in Chinese workers and undercut the unions. As well, it's very interesting, the strategy that China and Russia had. They put a lot of money into changing legislation in Canada so Canada couldn't actually access its own natural resources. And now they want to bring in a lot of these land grabs and give the rights to First Nations or other groups like the UN. So then those groups can give the mineral rights directly to China. So China can get around a lot of their own sanctions they put in within the Canadian legislation.
And again, they've already done some of these deals with the First Nations themselves and outlined it in their documents that they are working with China specifically.
Okay, let's keep going here. You're getting worked up.
Greg Lubimov says, quote, Canada thinks China will come to do auto manufacturing in Canada, just like the American and other companies do. They won't and have no interest. They especially have no interest in tying their operations to unions. This is a dark factory in Ningbo, China. It makes about 300,000 cars a year and employs 1,600 humans who are there for robots as maintenance and quality control. That's about half to 1/3 less employees needed for comparable auto plant production with a different skill set of employees.
Yeah, it's even worse than that because
Canada is betting its economy on obsolete operations.
Yeah, it's even worse than that because we live in Mexico, and I see how Chinese manufacturing, Mexico is currently transitioning from Chinese manufacturing to its own manufacturing that works in conjunction with the US. How Chinese manufacturing works is 90% of the good is produced within China, then it's shipped over here to Mexico, finished off here so they can put a made in Mexico stamp on it, and then ship it over the border to avoid a tariff. It's something similar that's going to happen in Canada. The majority of the product is going to be manufactured in China, then shipped over to the facility in Canada. The last 10% will be finished off. Most of that by robotics. There's going to be very little jobs created, and even less as we go forward, and robotics can take more and more of a bigger role along with AI.
Yes.
What happened?
I was trying to figure out how to go into this next story. But yes. And again, Canada will just continue losing because it's hinging its policies on things that have not been relevant for the longest time, and also on China, which should be worrying to everybody within Canada.
Well, yeah, and Mexico really is the framework that Canada should have been looking to for their North America Free Trade Agreement. Mexico has a far left ideologue for a president. Trump lets her talk all kinds of crap publicly because he wants her to play to her base as long as she cooperates economically behind the scenes. And that's exactly what she's been doing. And it's been to the massive benefit of Mexico. One out of every $4 America claws back from China in its trade war. They're investing in Mexican manufacturing that helps the U.S.
This next story, not that I, again, fully agree that Pierre Poilievre is super important right now, but it does show how the Canadian media continues to work because they're subsidized by the federal government. Mara Zelaya says, quote, breaking misinformation. The Toronto Star says Poilievre went on another U.S. podcast. The Diary of a CEO is hosted by Stephen Bartlett, a British entrepreneur based in the UK. It's the biggest podcast in Europe. These are the people who think they're qualified to tell you what's misinformation, and they can't even Google where a podcast is from before publishing a headline. This is Canadian media in 2026, writing hit pieces. They didn't even fact check. I would say this is Canadian media since 2011. Probably.
Well, the fact that they're still doing hit pieces on him, and it's obvious Carney's got that majority government with the floor crossers and the by-elections on, I believe it's the 13th of this month. It's absolute craziness. I think they're continuing to do hit pieces on him because they want to push him into this idea of we need to put Canada first. You're going to need to be the one to stop Alberta independence. And I think they're going to come to him with that proposition after they get the majority government.
But again, taking on another U.S. podcast to sketch out his vision for Canada is pointless. He should have done this during the campaign and gone to the U.S. and other podcasts, also around Canada, independent media, to sketch out his vision for Canada. Maybe we would have understood a bit better what he wanted to do. Now it's pointless for him to do so.
Well, he did sketch it out very well. So I would say he sketched it out fine. The amount of TDS, the way they were able to rig an election just with Trump derangement syndrome is insane. And I think they're going to try a similar playbook with Alberta. This is why Alberta needs to not turn its back or shy away from Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form, but make it very clear they don't want to be the 51st state. They want to be their own independent nation.
But also, we criticize the way that he ran his campaign quite a bit, which is what I was doing. And yet, this is the state of Canada still in Saskatchewan. From Wealth Moose, quote, RCMP recruitment video in Regina, Saskatchewan. Welcome to Canada. We've been here for a while, Canada. Like, don't pretend like this is new, but at least now it's going viral and worrying some people.
ਹੈਲੋ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਜਾਈਨਾ ਸਸਕੈਚੁਅਨ ਚ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਔਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਰਸੀਐਮਪੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਅਫਸਰ ਬਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਅਸੀਂ 12 ਅਪ੍ਰੈਲ ਨੂੰ ਰਜਾਈਨਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਘਰੇ 10 ਵਜੇ ਤੋਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ 1 ਵਜੇ ਤੱਕ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਜਸਵਿੰਦਰ ਕੁਮਰਾਹ
And a lot of people might be saying there's nothing wrong with this. We have to appeal to these communities so we can have police officers of that. You need a unifying identity and a unifying language called English. It's fine if they're bilingual, but they shouldn't be doing recruitment in Punjabi.
Very specific.
The reason this is needed is because of the type of immigration policies you've created.
Well, then they continue on, but we can't understand what they're saying. So. But yeah, just to show that is apparently the official stance and policy of at least the Regina RCMP, but again, RCMP is federal, so of probably all the RCMP. And people have been complaining and yelling about all the LMIA shenanigans that have been happening with a bunch of different communities, not just from India, but now that the police themselves are basically doing it.
Well, I used to train a lot of police officers because I used to be a jiu-jitsu coach up in Vancouver. And the thing is, they try to recruit a lot of Sikh and Punjabi individuals because of the amount of gang violence that happens in Vancouver and Surrey. So, it's a very interesting situation they've created for themselves. They're not creating police officers because they want to interact with that community better. No, it's because there's massive criminal organizations within a lot of these communities.
That they've let in.
Yeah.
That they haven't looked into before they let people in through the door. Speaking of insanity in British Columbia, from Billboard Chris, and we used to volunteer with Billboard Chris. He's really great. Go follow him if you don't. He's trying to teach people about the insanity of mutilating children. British Columbia has become more totalitarian this month. The far-left government has replaced many self-regulatory bodies with itself. This will cause more health professionals to flee to the U.S. And yes, as of April 1st, British Columbia's Health Professors and Occupations Act, Bill 36, takes effect by replacing self-regulation with government-appointed boards, reducing regulatory colleges from 15 to 6, and introducing stricter centralized disciplinary processes.
This is just a huge consolidation of power, especially with Mark Carney's majority government on the rise. Who do you think is going to appoint a lot of this? There's going to be less and less oversight. It's Canada, I don't know how it fixes itself at this point. Alberta has an opportunity to really fix itself through independence here.
Canada can't fix itself. That's the whole point. That's the whole issue.
Well, maybe it can. And we watched that first video that we played, and Alberta has independence. Hopefully the federal government isn't able to put so many barriers in the way of these other provinces, because Saskatchewan can go next. The Northern Territories are just that. They're territories. They're not actually provinces. So they don't have as many hurdles in front of them. If Alberta can really set the framework, there is hope for some of these other provinces.
Hopefully. Now we'll read some of your comments before we get into Alberta and the world and how world issues affect Alberta and might help it as well. Sam says, Canada is 5 million adults and 35 million children with their handouts. Yes. Harmony says, yes, not young people and not kids, the kids that are currently in power. Sam says, my little grandson overheard us talking about Laurentians. His 2 cents were that we should make them eat broccoli. We should make them eat broccoli.
Well, and I will say one other thing. We have a story later. I think it's in the RUMBLE section, but the UK for the first time has spent more on its welfare system, $333 billion, than it takes in taxes. It only takes in $331 billion. That doesn't even account for the cost of what you need to run the government. That's just for their welfare programs, because so many immigrants are in the country now.
Say hi to your little grandson for us as well. Maybe make them eat their fake meat that they want to start putting on to the Canadian people and not telling them that it's fake meat. We've talked about that before. Walker, hello Walker, says YouTube is always deleting my comments. I know, I'm sorry.
Oh no, we don't allow.
No, it's Walker. Walker always has issues with YouTube. He's from, he also comes to my Spanish show. But it says, YouTube is always deleting my comments. I know, I'm sorry. He says, hello guys. Since YouTube won't let me say what I want, I'll just say this, my support for Alberta. Thank you. And I have been, again, talking about this issue a lot also in Spanish. So some of my followers are now interested, which is good.
Walker's from El Salvador. We do have a lot of other viewers on your other channel from South America. So hopefully we can bring good information to them about Alberta independence.
Yes, but hello Walker. And again, my show today in Spanish will happen tomorrow because we have to prepare for an interview, our first interview. So we'll see you tomorrow. Mañana. Harmony says they control and are owners of the education publishing houses as well. And beside the media and YouTube, for example, we are hardworking and full of resiliency. Exactly. And we've highlighted how the publishing system in Canada has also been completely broken and nothing essentially of value can be published in Canada anymore because the government has its hooks into it. Should we?
Let's go into world politics and then we'll finish with the comments before we go to RUMBLE.
Because we're running out of time as always. But let's see Alberta and the context with the world. Starting with, hold on, there we go. From Eric Doherty, quote, breaking, Iran could reportedly strike a deal with President Trump as soon as today to stop hostilities. Until it becomes official, Trump is full steam ahead and on decimating Iran and bridge power plant. Today is tomorrow. Iran and the U.S. have received a plan to end hostilities. This is a framework that was put together by Pakistan. It reportedly includes an immediate ceasefire followed by a comprehensive agreement.
Yeah, I just don't think Iran wants to negotiate right now. And this is going to be a big issue for Trump because he's threatening power plants, bridges, and civilian infrastructure. If he doesn't win the midterms and he's actually hits a lot of the civilian infrastructure, this is all they need for war crimes and to impeach him. So I hope he doesn't go this path because the midterms right now aren't looking good. I am a big Trump supporter. That being said, I just hope he makes the right decisions here. I wish Iran would negotiate, but I think their entire game plan was to kind of carry this thing out and threaten a lot of ships in the Strait of Hormuz.
Do you want me to play it or no?
Oh, you can play it, yeah.
Sure.
Reuters is reporting that Iran and the U.S. have received a plan to end hostilities. This is a framework that was put together by Pakistan. It reportedly includes an immediate ceasefire followed by a comprehensive agreement. The White House, they're telling Fox this morning that the president has not signed off on this and that Operation Epic Fury continues. Of course, all the success of this mission over the weekend came with a renewed warning from the president that bridges and power plants will be targeted tomorrow if the Strait of Hormuz is not opened. Reuters
and I would be shocked if that was actually true. Trump keeps saying there's negotiations when apparently there hasn't been negotiations. The Iran regime comes out directly after he makes these statements, and so no, there has been a negotiation.
But this is a who do we believe kind of conundrum as well.
Well, yeah, it's because Trump has said it multiple times now. I just don't think they're actually in negotiations, and Trump wants this thing to end. He doesn't want. This is the point where he's starting to get sucked into it. I hope he's able to just cut it off and withdraw it. We'll see kind of what happens there, though.
But then in the Alberta context, it's, I mean, again, Alberta is sitting on so much, well, not just oil wealth, but a bunch of different resources wealth.
This definitely helps Alberta independence because Canada has not developed their resources within Alberta, the pipelines or anything else, and they're getting a lot of their oil from the Strait of Hormuz as well as Australia when it comes to the East Coast. And why is there a tanker ban on the West Coast, but none on the East Coast?
And then moving on to the other insanity that is France and the European Union. And we've spoken a lot about how Marine Le Pen got essentially censored from being able to say anything. And they used a lot of the same laws that they want to implement in Canada to silence her. But Inevitable West says Marine Le Pen has just backed defunding the globalist. What?
You don't need to play the clip. It's in French.
Oh, sorry. Defunding the globalist EU. We have ideas for savings. We will stop sending $6 billion to the European Union.
Yeah, and this is huge. I mean, if Trump pulls out of NATO, he can't really pull out of NATO because he actually needs 2/3 of Congress and there's too big of a uniparty. That being said, he can stop a lot of the funding. This is going to create a lot of the Eastern Bloc countries to really think about separating from the EU, especially if it starts to get defunded. There's so much corruption within the EU. There's a real sentiment from a lot of these more right-wing parties to start defunding a lot of it.
We also have a whole video on this channel about Canada's crazy, wild idea, or at least the rumblings of them wanting to join the EU.
Yeah, and I think we have another story on
Which
that.
should tell you everything.
I think we have another story on that tomorrow, or maybe it's in today's episode as well. The mainstream media is pitching this again, that 68% of Canadians want to be part of the EU. The EU is falling off a cliff even faster than Canada. Canada at least has a parachute with natural resources if it chooses to use it. The EU doesn't have any of that. They just completely deindustrialize themselves.
And just really quickly, we do have to stop the show because this is what we do. JP Alberta First, hello. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you.
My apologies, but what is the guy's name? Guy.
Oh, my name is Guy.
Yeah.
And my dog's name is Girl.
Exactly.
They named her Girl because my name was Guy. Yeah.
But that's why it was funny. It's the guy, but also your actual name is Guy.
Yeah.
And also so much for the $2 super chat. And it just says, thank you for your donation. So left blank, but thank you so much.
Well, and luckily my mother named me Guy instead of Guy because I was born in Canada, but I lived half in the States and half in Canada. And in the States, they do not like French people. So Guy was much more of an acceptable name.
That too. But here, because people can't pronounce Guy properly, sometimes they call you Guy, Gay, Gooey.
Gooey.
He has multiple funny names here in Spanish.
Yeah, and thank you for the super chat. It really does help us to continue to do the work.
Yes, but actually his name. But speaking of NATO, and Trump actually may be quitting NATO, which would be a great thing. Peter St. Ong says, quote, Trump threatens to quit NATO. We spend $300 billion a year defending Europe, including their war in Ukraine, but when we need them, they don't lift a finger. And we've discussed about how this might be the perfect excuse and opportunity for the US and for Trump to actually leave NATO because of the way they've been left hanging with this whole Iran situation.
Well, yeah, and again, he'll go into it at the end, and he lays everything out so concisely, and this is why I like using him a lot for a lot of these clips. But he can really pull out of NATO by cutting off a lot of the funding and not engaging in it in the same way.
Donald Trump is threatening to leave NATO because they are useless freeloaders. He went on to threaten to stop trying to reopen the Strait of Hormuz since the oil goes to Europe and China, so if they want it, they should, quote, build up some courage and take it. Will the Iran war end NATO and the global free ride where America spends hundreds of billions policing the world so they can backstab us on trade and war? All month, Trump has been raging at NATO for not supporting the war in Iran, indeed for obstructing the war, even blocking joint air bases we pay for, and then refusing to lift a finger to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. On CNBC, Marco Rubio asked, quote, why are we in NATO? Why do we send trillions of dollars if, in our time of need, we won't be allowed to use these bases? Just last week, an interviewer asked Trump if he's reconsidering U.S. membership in NATO, to which he replied, quote, I'd say it's beyond reconsideration. We were there for them in Ukraine. They were not there for us. So what?
And we got one more super chat.
Oh, hold on. Thank you so much. There we go. And JP Alberta First says, perfect. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. And yeah, there is your answer. It sounds unbelievable, and I did not believe him when he told me that was his name initially, and then I got used to it. But let's continue, Gooey.
Why are we in NATO? With the exception of token forces in Afghanistan, we've gotten literally nothing from the alliance we have indeed spent trillions on. One study by the Foreign Policy Research Institute estimates roughly 25% of our military budget is for Europe, so over $200 billion a year. RAND estimates it's closer to $300 billion, so 47% of collective costs. Note that's just ongoing costs. It does not include the Ukraines nor the Bosnias and Kosovos that came before it. Now, $300 billion is more than Somali leering centers. In fact, it's enough to cancel the income tax for everybody up to $100,000 per year. Put differently, $300 billion is enough to cancel all tax on business, which would steal every large company and job from Europe. If you tally it up over the 80 years of NATO, it comes to roughly $10 trillion in today's terms. You are welcome, Europe.
And if one good thing came out of this conflict that's going on right now with the Strait of Hormuz, maybe people are waking up to the U.S. should pull out of NATO or not being so much involved. They are the backbone of NATO right now. And Europe is trying to wait Trump out to engage World War III through Ukraine and take the $74 trillion from Russia. That has always been their plan, to float the EU for another 50 or 100 years.
So it's not just the dollars. Our European footprint has roped us into nearly every war in a century. The World Wars, of course, which installed Wilson's wartime socialism in World War I, followed by FDR's dictatorship, when the Europeans screwed up inflation, sparking the Great Depression that reignited their World War. Then Vietnam, inherited from the French, Iran, ironically, which we got involved in to protect British oil interests, Bosnia in 95, Kosovo in 99, Libya in 2011, and of course Ukraine, where the average American does not care who owns Luhansk. But apparently our friends in Europe care enough to hit us up for $188 billion we had to borrow from China. So what's next? NATO is useless, it's expensive, it drags us into endless wars. What would it take to leave? So any member can leave NATO with 1 year notice, but Congress passed a law 2 years ago saying it takes 2/3 approval to exit, which will not happen. There's enough America Last Republicans, and Dems will vote no to spite Trump. That leaves a quiet quit, which Trump can do on his own. So bring our troops home, cut off all funding. You're still a member, but you're not paying, and you are not fighting their wars. Trump uses threats to get compliance, so maybe this is just signaling to get Europe off its butt. But hopefully, it's real, and we can finally ditch Europe's freeloaders. Listen to all last week's videos in a 20-minute
and Congress did that because they knew Trump was coming in. So they wanted to prevent him from moving out of NATO because a lot of people figured that's one of the big things he wanted to do. It would be great if he could do it. As long as he just cuts off a lot of funding, I'm happy with that because I do understand he does need Congress's approval, and the Uniparty is not going to go for that.
And yet, Canada does continue with its propaganda, even now after we made the video that, and lots of people told us that it sounded insane, but to join that failure that is Europe. CTV News says Canada in the European Union. Poll suggests broad openness to the idea.
And you don't have to go to it, but this is a full article from CTV News. Every time they make one, I kind of talk about it because it's very obvious. There is a lot of pushback from Russia within Ukraine, a lot more than I think the NATO expected from Russia. And that $74 trillion golden parachute that they thought they were going to get from Russia isn't going to be there. Canada is possibly the next best option if they can unite Canada with the EU and then access their natural resources through tokenization and land grabs like the 30 by 30 program. It'd be very interesting what's going to happen.
But also more people noticing that Canada continues to adopt a lot of those insane legislations or it works in conjunction to build the insane legislation on censorship, for example. And again, we have talked about it with concerns regarding Alberta independence and how it can impact it, but more people are picking up on it too. Patrick David.
Oh, stop. We got a...
whom I don't hold it anymore.
That's the same guy. Yes. Very generous. I really appreciate it.
JP Alberta First says the U.S. did pretty good for itself before NATO. Pulling back wouldn't be a bad thing for them. It would definitely get him back to America First agenda. Well, and I do agree with that.
Repeat that again. Sorry, slowly.
Thank you so much for the $10 super chat. JP Alberta First says the U.S. did pretty good for itself before NATO. Pulling back wouldn't be a bad thing for them. It would definitely get him back to the America First agenda.
Yeah, he's bringing manufacturing and trying to rebuild the American economy and the American engine. Europe is too far gone. They've deindustrialized. Their only way out in their parachute is war. They think they're going to send all the right wingers that they don't like, they'll just send off to war. Then they can build their liberal utopia and take the natural resources that Russia possesses as its bailout. I think that's always been the plan, and it doesn't look like that's going to work. Trump does not need to get sucked into that, but it's going to be very hard for him to pull out of NATO because he needs two-thirds of Congress. Just de-engaging and having the support of the American people when you do de-engage, because they can now see the hypocrisy of NATO.
Exactly. But thank you so much once again.
Yeah.
Now going to our last story, just because not that I carry any water for him, but Patrick David is also talking about Bill C-9. Says Canada politicians have lost their minds. Impressed that he's just now noticing.
Well, and I like Patrick David a lot better than you do. That being said, it's good to see American content creators pointing this out with Canada, pointing out the censorship. The big part I didn't like in this bill was not necessarily this part, although this is absolutely egregious. But in Europe, they've been weaponizing a lot of these other parts of these bills.
Yeah, hate speech.
Canada just, in 2025, I want to say October, maybe even earlier than that, a couple guys, this guy right here, they started working on saying some of the stuff in the Bible is hate speech. Okay? Truly. Some of the stuff in the Bible is hate speech. And here's what he had to say. Go for it, Rob.
In this case, the Bible, but there are other religious texts that say the same thing. And somehow say that this is good faith. I mean, clearly there are situations in these texts where these statements are hateful. They should not be used
in the Bible.
Blasphemy or be a defense, and there should perhaps be discretion for prosecutors to press charges. I just want to understand what your notion of good faith is.
And the Americans, when they get a hold of this and the numbers for the MAID program and the extent which the MAID program is going to, this is why a lot of Americans are starting to view Canada as a godless country that's moving quickly towards socialism and communism.
It is a godless country that's moving towards communism.
Well, not all of it, and that's the thing.
No, but the ones at the top of that manage all of it.
In this context where there are clearly...
Yeah, when you have a country without a constitution, this is what happens. I mean, they don't have the First Amendment.
Let me read this, and then I'm going to come to you. Let me read this, and I'm going to come to you. So you're hearing this, okay? So here we go. Canada wants to make quoting the Bible illegal. This is The Spectator, 2 days ago. Easter's almost here, and Canada's Liberal government has chosen the sacred season to display its utter contempt for Christianity. It's currently forcing through the outrageous Bill C-9, which could make it a hate crime to quote from the sections of the Bible. More than 40 civil and religious groups have asked that for the bill's language be clarified and its scope more carefully defined so that religious texts would not be subject to hate crime legislation, but all in vain. After a hot debate in the House of Commons, the Liberals high-handedly ended a conservative filibuster. In fact, fast-tracked the bill. It's now been sent to the Senate to decide if Canada is a kind of a country that wants to turn quoting St. Paul into a criminal act.
You look at Canada during COVID, they were going after churches like crazy. And again, I think this is bigger than politics. I think it's spiritual. I think that Canada has an attack on truth across the board. The world is seeing an attack on truth across the board. Tom has been touching on it. And I think it's a spiritual war. If you can destroy the idea of gender, if you can destroy the idea of man having value, woman having value, the sanctity of a child. Like when you think about how out of control abortion is, all these things, and now they're attacking the very scripture that's meant to be spread to protect against those evils. They're doing it for a reason. And that's the thing I fear most in the world.
Okay, and it's important to watch a lot of these American podcasters and what really strikes a chord with their audience. Another podcaster is from Blaze TV. Glenn Beck profiles Canada a lot and a lot of their crazy policies as a warning to Americans that this is America 5 or 10 years down the future if we keep going down this progressive path. But if we know these specific issues that are really touching a chord with them, when we go on, hopefully we reach out as an Alberta independence movement. When we go on, we want to focus on these cultural issues because these are things they can relate to. Talking a lot about the Alberta economy and how it can stand on its own 2 feet. That's to talk to Albertans with. When we talk to Americans or an international audience, the fact that Canada is trying to ban the Bible, the fact that we don't have a First Amendment, the fact that they're trying to take away firearms and
deregulate? What? Sorry. Well, since you mind spasm, saying thank you so much to Christu for the $10 Rumble rant over on Rumble. Sorry, I hadn't seen it. It says, Happy Easter. Here's for a few treats for the girl.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's so cute.
And I did remember, so thanks for putting the comments to disarm the population. Well, they bring in Chinese soldiers and recruit them into the Canadian military and have them protect natural resource sites. When you talk to Americans, these are the kinds of things that they're going to really say, Alberta needs to break free. We support it. We support them being their own independent nation. And when they say, well, we don't want to be part of the United States because every 4 or 8 years you're risking somebody like Gavin Newsom, this is something conservatives themselves know.
And we will get to all the RUMBLE comments. I'm sorry I had kind of been ignoring them. They didn't show up until now. That's why I just read it now. But thank you so much, Christu. And I'll finish reading off all the YouTube comments and then we'll go over to RUMBLE.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's try to do it quickly. I want to try to be out by 7 because I don't.
Okay. But you keep talking. Republic of Alberta says Albertans have never had it easy. We'll be fine, and I do agree with that as well. And you are made out of something different cloth.
Well, and that's what gives you the ability to have success when you gather independence. And this is what is going to hinder Quebec if they ever go for independence.
Harmony says, I know and I have experienced the harm and evil practices. Now I can speak. And thank you for speaking as well. Jess says, Home with Homes is a great group to follow. Yes. And that's why we profile them.
And again, they are a very small channel. I seen them. I really like their channel. I said, how many subscribers do they got? I was shocked. They don't even have 1,000 subscribers. The kind of content they're putting out is absolutely amazing. They will notice every single subscriber. So I do recommend going over there and hitting subscribe now. Their content is going to become more and more important as we go on.
Yes, go subscribe. Says they read the entire APP document and made it make sense for everyone. I put it on the background and it was a great learning experience. And exactly, and that's also why we like that they are giving educational content specifically about Alberta independence.
And they're talking about subjects that nobody else is talking about, like how much water does Alberta have? How do we build a water infrastructure so we can build better farming? Why is high-speed rail important in Alberta? And to build that rail even outside of Alberta and possibly connect it to the U.S.
Harmony says people are not often recognized, and this is why I appreciate your style. Thank you. And we have tried to highlight a lot of interesting people because we also had trouble finding them. So now that we found them, we want to highlight them.
Well, and I've been highlighting a lot of bigger creators once in a while. I mean, some smaller creators, but we're a small channel, so very few channels are smaller than us that are putting out extremely good content. They happen to be one of them. So I'm really happy when I can profile a channel that's that good and that small.
Yes. Troglodyte says, I fly the red ensign. Good. Republic of Alberta says, if you knew about how badly the British treated Albertan settlers and natives, you wouldn't touch that rag. Alberta's flag only has the Crusader Cross of St. George for a reason. Interesting history. Also, we need to do some kind of history thing at some point. Alberta history thing. Yeah. Because I'm sure it's very interesting and I don't know all of it.
Well, it's going to be best, I think, if we bring on some people to interview that know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Harmony says, absolutely, people versus the banks. I have issues with them also. I've had plenty of issues with them as well, both here and in Canada. Troglodyte says, English and French only in Canada, English only in Alberta, I would say. Just keep it English.
Well, and yeah, we're going to finish off all the comments here on YouTube. Then we're going to head over to Rumble. If you guys want to start heading over there now, but let's finish the comments here.
Sam says, Regina has been the home of RCMP recruit training for a long time. Republic of Alberta, well, Sam says Guy, because someone asked what your name was. JP asked what your name was. Republic of Alberta says, natives helped my ancestors big time. I wouldn't be here without the pemmican and medicines they brought early settlers. There's no history of conflict between us in Alberta. And they've tried to stir up that conflict, or maybe even non-existent conflict, specifically for this as well, with all the petition that is coming through from the First Nations and the federal government. Sam says, exactly, Republic. The hostility is from Ottawa Fed chiefs, not the people. I've met some truly awesome natives in my Alberta travels.
No, and Keith Wilson has really cleared up the option for the First Nations here, and he's done a fantastic job with it. And we had somebody comment the other day that they're First Nations and they've asked 20 of their friends and 18 are voting for independence. So I think those are pretty good odds, and that's a community that's really supporting Alberta independence because they've got the short end of the stick from the own elites in their tribe.
Exactly. Republic of Alberta says natives deserve better treatment as well. They're entitled to energy royalties that Ottawa steals from them, and that too. Harmony, thank you, says Nat is allowed to get worked up, LOL, to the guy. Exactly, I am.
Well, when she gets worked up, I start getting worked up, and then I watch it back later, I'm like, we were way too intense.
But sometimes I'm too blah, and you keep saying, make your energy go up. So when I do, then you complain. You don't go, you stay calm and I'll be the worked up one.
Okay.
Because I think I'm funny when I'm worked up, when I look back at it. Sam says, I think Nat and Guy should stay online with the Alberta Independence broadcast until bedtime. Well, it depends what time your bedtime is too.
We're broadcasting 6 days a week now, so we were going to do 5. We decided to do 6. We did a special appreciation stream on Saturday.
For the canvassers.
And I just said, well, let's just do it every Saturday, and hopefully we can release an interview every Sunday. So that'll be 7 days a week of content.
And I mean, the guy's bedtime is like 9 p.m. So
yeah, I go to
that
bed
wouldn't be
pretty
that
early.
much longer. Bradley, mine is like 3 a.m. Bradley Wilcox says, hey guys, love watching you. Guys, thank you so much. And says, go Alberta. Exactly, go Alberta.
Yeah, and again, we're just a couple that this subject matter is really near and dear to our heart because the Canadian government pushed us out of Canada, crossed every single red line like it did for a lot of Canadians, and there was nothing like Alberta independence. It's really heartening to see a group of like-minded individuals willing to kind of push back, fight back, and not be pushed out of their homes. Because before we left, I mean, we lived in Vancouver, the wokest place in Canada. There were no like-minded people, or very few.
Justin GP says, thanks, Nat and Guy. I'll meet you over at Rumble. We'll be right there. Thank you so much. Joe Rush says, just got in here in time to say have a good night and smash the like, share, and subscribe. LOL. And thank you so much. We always forget to say that, and Joe Rush always reminds us. So exactly, and thank you so much. Please do subscribe. It's what helps us the most, and it's free to you. And also like and share if you feel so inclined. And Harmony says, you're the next couple I will send a donation to. Thank you so much. Says, I really enjoy your respect towards others, love and light. Thank you so much.
And we do really appreciate everybody that has sent super chats, especially JP today. That was more than generous. We don't put anything behind the paywall or memberships because we talk about Alberta independence, and every bit of information is crucially important leading up to this October 19th referendum.
And we've looked into other tempting maybe avenues as to where, because people have asked us, but I think right now for us at least there's no good alternatives other than like YouTube super chats.
Yeah, the subject matter is just too important to put behind a paywall. Maybe after the 19th, once we win independence, we'll have a memberships section.
Yes, but thank you so much. And Harmony has been great as well. And I always enjoy reading you, and you're so nice too. But let's head over to RUMBLE. Hold on. Let's head over to RUMBLE. There will be like a 30-second thing, the one I played at the beginning by mistake, that one. And once again, thank you so much to JP, Alberta First, and everybody else that came over today. We'll see you over there in a few seconds. We do have quite a few stories, so go over there and subscribe before you leave here on YouTube.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Back rumbling. Yes, I will read all your